Thank you for joining us on our special coverage on Chinese President Xi Jinping's day visit to Cambodia. President Xi has arrived in the Cambodian capital, Phnom Penh, and attended a welcome ceremony held by Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni.
And this is the third and final stop of President Xi's three-nation tour in Southeast Asia, following Malaysia and Vietnam. CGTN will certainly bring you the latest of this visit in Cambodia on our special program.
First, Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a two-day state visit to Cambodia. His visit comes at the invitation of Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni, who also held a welcome ceremony at the airport. President Xi Jinping said China-Cambodia relations have withstood the test of global transformations and remain rock solid. The Chinese president also noted that he looks forward to cementing friendship and promoting greater cooperation with Cambodia. More than 20,000 people, including representatives of overseas Chinese-funded enterprises and international students, gathered to warmly welcome President Xi's visit.
Well, before Xi's arrival in Phnom Penh, Cambodian media outlets published his signed article. Our Chen Yuan had the details for us.
Just ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's arrival for a two-day state visit to Cambodia, locals will find his signed article featured on the front pages of Cambodian media outlets, including the Khmer Times, Jinhua Daily, and Fresh News. In the article titled "Together We Strive, Together We Thrive Toward a Stable and Sustainable China-Cambodia Community with a Shared Future in the New Era," Xi says China has been Cambodia's largest trading partner and largest source of investment, with China-supported infrastructure projects bolstering the long-term development of the country.
China has helped Cambodia build roads, facilitating people's travel. That's friendship.
She said that China and Cambodia should bring their mutual political trust to a higher level and expand their mutually beneficial cooperation of higher quality.
When I hear the president is paying a visit, I am happy. As a Khmer, I offer my support.
President Xi describes China's friendship with Cambodia as ironclad, and his article reflects this friendship, reaffirming China's steadfast commitment to further enhancing bilateral ties. Chen Yuan, CGTN, Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
And the bond between China and Cambodia continues to strengthen, marked by deepening political trust, thriving economic ties, and vibrant people-to-people exchanges. Here's an overview.
China and Cambodia established diplomatic relations in 1958, laying the foundation for a lasting friendship. In 2010, the two countries elevated ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation. In 2019, Cambodia became the first nation to sign an action plan with China to build a community with a shared future. By 2023, the initiative entered a new era, marked by high quality, high level, and high standards. Bilateral cooperation has achieved milestones in key sectors. China remains Cambodia's largest trading partner. Bilateral trade flourishes under the China-Cambodia Free Trade Agreement, which took effect on January 2022. It's also Cambodia's first bilateral FTA. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, the Sihanoukville Special Economic Zone stands out. The zone hit record-breaking trade volumes of more than $4 billion in 2024. Over 200 enterprises from China, Europe, the US and Southeast Asia generate some 32,000 jobs for Cambodians. The Chinese-built Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway is Cambodia's first high-speed toll road, cutting travel time between the capital and the key port from more than 5 hours to under 2 hours. Bilateral cooperation in tourism and cultural sectors is also growing. 2024 was designated as Cambodia-China People-to-People Exchange Year. More than 840,000 Chinese tourists travel to Cambodia. The country expects more tourists this year, with 2025 designated as the Cambodia-China Year of Tourism. From the comprehensive strategic partnership to the innovative Diamond Hexagon cooperation framework that spans politics, industry, agriculture, energy, security and culture, China and Cambodia push forward the building of a community with a shared future.
And President Xi Jinping's visit comes after an invitation from Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni, who held a welcome ceremony for him at the airport. CGTN's Tang Bo reports from Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh.
It is very hot in here in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, just like the atmosphere welcoming the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And this is Hun Sen Park in downtown Phnom Penh. As you can see behind me, that there are a lot of the Chinese national flags and, of course, the Cambodian national flags welcoming the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And early in the morning, as we arrive into this live position, we've seen a lot of local residents gathering along the streets to greet the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And I talked to them, asking about their expectations. They told me that they were looking forward to the state visit, which they believe would improve the mutual trust and, of course, enhance the economic cooperation. This is President Xi Jinping's second visit to Cambodia in 9 years. And according to the local media, that President Xi Jinping is expected to meet with King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen and Prime Minister Hun Manet. And one day before President Xi Jinping's arrival, that the Cambodian Prime Minister released a welcoming video online saying that he's looking forward to discussing with President Xi Jinping and charting a course of action for the future development of the bilateral cooperations. And in his speech, Manet called the China-Cambodia bond the strongest, comparing it to iron regarding the partnership in various fields between the two countries. And that's echoed with the Central Conference of China's foreign neighborhood diplomacy, which noted that the relationships between China and its neighboring countries, including Cambodia, of course, is right now in its best period of the modern times. And the relationships have entered the stage of interconnections between regional cooperation and the evolving global landscape. Experts say that the state visit reaffirms the ironclad friendships between the two countries. Last year, the trade volume between the two countries increased 13% to over 15 billion US dollars. And experts say that China is already Cambodia's largest trading partner and, of course, a very important source of foreign direct investment. So this time, the state visit is expected to reach new agreements in the areas of trade, infrastructure, and education, of course, people-to-people exchange. And also, experts said that the support from China is very important for the country to diversify away from its garment manufacturing towards the more high value-added manufacturing like electronics, automotive parts, and of course infrastructure, education, 5G digital economy, and of course agro-economy.
And now let's hear some more views with our studio guests here. We are pleased to be joined by Han Hua, co-founder and Secretary General of Beijing Club for International Dialogue, and also Professor Liu Baocheng. He's Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Great to have both of you on our program. So let me begin with you, Ms. Han. We know that this close bond between China and Cambodia has been nurtured by generations of leaders from both sides over the decade. And now they're taking things one step further. There are two parts to my question to you. How do you evaluate the current state of bilateral relations between these two countries, and how do you see it developed?
Oh, thanks for having me. I think for the first part, how do I evaluate the current situation of the friendship and the bilateral relations? I think it has reached and set an example for China to have a very good relationship and friendship rooted from a long history and developed in the new era to a very height of the friendship and the bilateral relationship down the road. And it is a very good example for China to further develop its relationship with neighboring countries, especially with the ASEAN countries in this region, because China and Cambodia has no issues, no political issues, but only the same or similar development goals down the road. And both countries have contributed a lot, not only in economic cooperation, in culture exchange, in people-to-people ties to strengthening the people-to-people ties. So it has set a very good example for China to develop its relationship with ASEAN countries, especially in this year when China and ASEAN countries are celebrating its 50 years anniversary of establishing the normal relationship. So it is a very good example, and it has a lot of experiences and practices sharing cases for the other countries in these particular areas. And what I want to mention or highlight is that when in Malaysia, Chinese President Xi Jinping mentioned with Prime Minister NY about to establish and strengthen the dialogue between Chinese civilization and Islamic civilization. And for China and Cambodia, both countries share the religion and culture, root, in particular in the Confucius, in the Buddhist culture and the religion background. So China and Cambodia can also set a very particular example for this kind of civilizational dialogue.
Professor Liu, let me get your take on what is known as the China-Cambodia community with a shared future. The Chinese president said that he hoped this visit will spearhead progress towards building this community. What does this community entail, and how will it be promoted with this visit by the Chinese president?
First of all, peace and prosperity are the ultimate aim that all the countries involved, actually the ASEAN countries together with China, they have been serving as the locomotive for global growth, is because of the mutual respect and also the equal treatment among each other towards a common goal. And second is shared vision, because China has the second centennial goal until the 2049, and Cambodia had the vision 2050. So both are really aiming at it to strengthen their national strengths through the urbanization, through industrialization, and particularly for the infrastructure development. And third is really the synergy between these two countries with regard to industrial structure and also to industrial capacity. So China has been also doing a lot in terms of the infrastructure building, from airport to hydropower, etc. And Chinese consumers can enjoy more of the agricultural produce, from banana to coconuts, etc. from Cambodia. And I think lastly, we also have the same challenge, because when Donald Trump is really disturbing the whole world with a shockwave of tariff, and China, of course, is the largest one that is working more or less like a tit-for-tat anniversary, and Cambodia is also facing a tariff of the 49%. So how do we address such a sort of issue by working more closely with each other and to streamline all the barriers, either at the custom level and also at the inbound level? So this is something that we need to imperatively work out, so that we can really reduce or internalize the shock wave that we're going to receive from this turbulence.
Professor Liu, Ms. Han, do stay with us on our program. We'll be back with you in just a few moments. Now, for more on the Chinese president's state visit to Cambodia, let's check in with CGTN reporter Huang Fei live in Phnom Penh for us this hour. Huang Fei, we understand as many as 20,000 people gathered lining up the streets in the capital to welcome the Chinese president. What more can you tell us?
Yes, well, Chinese President Xi arrived here this morning and he really received the royal welcome. The monarch himself really greeting him right at the tarmac. This was an unprecedented move by the king himself, and it just shows how important this relationship is for Cambodia. And of course, on site there were many people welcoming the president as well. Hundreds of people lining the airport, mostly teachers and local civil servants. These are the future bilateral ties. And of course, it's not just at the airport, as you said, people lining the street. 26,000 people, as we heard from local officials, have come out today to welcome the president. And, generally there is a sense of gratitude towards China, the country that has invested immensely in this, in Cambodia, transforming its infrastructure and its economy, and created many, many jobs. And so today, we saw this warm welcome for the Chinese president. Really, expectations are high for this visit to really bring more opportunities for exchanges and economic growth for Cambodia.
And Huang Fei, it's Mang Mang here. We know that this is President Xi Jinping's first visit to Cambodia in 9 years, and he's going to spend 2 days there meeting with senior officials. What are some of the expectations there from the locals?
Well, the president will have an audience with the king again, as well as the Queen Mother at the Royal Palace this afternoon. And, we saw crowds as well lining up outside the Royal Palace again this afternoon, welcoming President Xi. And in fact, the Queen Mother as well as the King actually travel to China very frequently, almost twice a year for medical checkups. And President Xi will also meet with Senate President Hun Sen and Prime Minister Hun Manet to discuss bilateral ties as well as regional and global issues that concern both countries. Tonight there will be a state banquet at 7, really further cementing the personal and warm ties these leaders have built over the past few years. And tomorrow morning, President Xi will have a working breakfast with Hun Sen and his 3 sons before flying back to Beijing. Now, President Xi has, of course, emphasized the Diamond Hexagon framework, targeting 6 key areas. And perhaps industry supply chain will be, top of discussion, bearing in mind that Cambodia has been hit with very big U.S. tariffs, the highest in Southeast Asia, and they really see China as a reliable partner in navigating these tough waters. President Xi also mentioned strategic communication in terms of diplomacy and in defense to really sort of fight against external forces and what he calls power politics and bloc confrontation. So a number of agreements are expected to be signed during this visit. Also worth noting that this year marks the year of tourism between China and Cambodia. So there could be new agreements in terms of culture and education and tourism, in addition to these hard-hitting areas of trade and politics. Back to you.
Huang Fei, we're watching all of this unfold very closely here. Thank you so much for that update. CGTN reporter Huang Fei live in Phnom Penh this hour. And infrastructure is among the highlights of cooperation between China and Cambodia. In Cambodia, a Chinese-invested highway helps locals reduce travel time and boosts economic growth along its route. Silkina Aluwalia reports from Phnom Penh.
Behind me is the Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway. This is Cambodia's first ever highway built with Chinese investment under the Belt and Road Initiative. We are at one of the rest areas, about 15 kilometers from the capital city of Phnom Penh. It's quite crowded, and you can see there's a nice little restaurant here. Right now, Cambodia is just coming out of their New Year holiday, which is a huge national holiday here. And we've been told that hundreds of people were using the expressway to their destination as far as 187 kilometers away. And before this highway was built, it would take up to 5 hours to get to the province of Sihanouk, but now it takes just about 2 hours. 2 hours is a huge difference, especially for people that want to do like a, day trip, meeting their families, going on vacations. This is definitely a much safer, faster, and more efficient way. We were just speaking to people on the ground here, and they were saying how the scenery along this highway is also really beautiful. So they actually love driving on it because they get to see all the greeneries and fresh nature. And Sihanouk itself, in the southern part of Cambodia, is a gorgeous coastal town. It's super popular among the locals here, and now it's really easy to get there from the capital city, Phnom Penh.
This road is helping faster and easier. These highways can connect it to Phnom Penh and also the other province. It faster, and it's also have many some speedboat to island, and it's easier. So actually, the road from Phnom Penh to Sihanoukville is only 2 hours. and the other connection from the port to island maybe 45 to 1 hour.
But this is not just changing the way Cambodians travel for leisure, but for trade and business as well. Officials are saying that this new route has significantly boosted tourism to the coastal provinces, especially during the national holidays, and that's amazing for the local economy. This entire project was completed with a total investment of over $2 billion, and it plays a crucial role in Cambodia's growing logistics sector as well. It's helping goods move faster across the country. So just by building this highway, Cambodia's infrastructure sector have improved dramatically. It's truly a major achievement under the Belt and Road Initiative cooperation with China.
We're getting word at this hour that the Chinese president has met with Cambodia's king for a meeting. We'll bring you more details when they become available. Make sure you do stay with us right here on CGTN. And let's continue our discussion with our studio guests, Han Hua, co-founder and Secretary General of Beijing Club for International Dialogue, and Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Ms. Han, both you and Professor Liu mentioned shared goals, shared political and cultural foundations, and a shared vision. Help us understand how all of these shared things that both sides have in common will contribute to their relationship and their friendship at the next stage.
Well, me first? Right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I think these shared goals and ambitions and development goals actually fall into both development strategies, respectively and collectively. For respectively, we have our global initiatives on civilization, on development, and on security. Actually, these are also the goals for Cambodia or other countries like Cambodia, developing countries in particular, to develop for the next stage, especially as Professor Liu Baocheng mentioned about in a turbulent world down the road. So I think two countries, all the countries with the shared goals and development goals in particular, together need to compare notes from time to time. So this state visit actually is a very good timing and a very good, event and a significant event to, if I may say so, to compare notes between the two countries, to know each other's priorities among these shared goals framework and say, what are your priorities and what are my priorities? How can we cooperate together to reach the goals together with our joint efforts, with our joint resources including the talent, education, and other education and healthcare programs together. And the joint efforts also request we put resources together so that we don't waste these resources but have the synergies together. So these not requires China to compare notes with Cambodia, but also China to compare notes with other Southeast Asian countries. But because in this ever regionalized world, we do need to compare notes and to share, our common goals and our common resource more closely so that we can reach our goals and becoming a stabilizing force in the world.
Since you mentioned the issue of priority, I want to mention the Diamond Hexagon framework for bilateral cooperation, covering 6 areas of priority areas of cooperation. Professor Liu, how do China and Cambodia becoming increasingly aligned with their development goals as well as strategies in this ever-changing international circumstance?
Friendship, sincerity, and even generosity are the basis for cooperation. But based on that, we also need a rule-bound collaboration structure. And so what is missing is the insufficient capability to honor contracts because people are talking about the friendship that's there to service the whole process. But the transparency and the predictability in the progress of certain projects will have to be maintained so that no other third element can intervene. Right now, we have a standstill in the canal development. We do need to take into consideration of the high level commitment and also how do we prevent the third-party intervention into such a huge projects, we can really benefit the entire region, not only Cambodia. And then capacity building is something that is very crucial because China does really offer a lot of aid and a lot of scholarship to Cambodia in terms of the business executives, government officials, and I've been also teaching a number of Cambodian students here. And so this does really help them to not only to generate the fruition of business based on the friendship and affinity, but also they learn the way as how to address what is really like in the future. And right now, skill setting is something that is highly needed, particularly for development in Cambodia. When I travel in Cambodia, I see that most of the high school workforces are from China. And China can really help them to localize more of their own capacity so that they are able to manage many of those projects that we help them to collectively build. So this way, we can really move at par with each other. It's not really a matter of throwing a dime, but rather to really to give them the fishing skills, and also China can keep open market to receive their fish processed with more added value. So this is more of there to elevate the level of structure, mutual alliance. And the good thing is that over the past 5 years, we have seen that both parties have the free trade agreement, in addition being a membership within the RCEP. And also we have the investment protection treaties being signed and currency swap treaties. So these are there to set up the framework for all participants to be able to see what is their obligation, what is the rights, and what could be the outcome. And this is a way to give a more sustainable and inclusive path for further development.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much again. Do stay with us here. And villagers in southeastern Cambodia say their living standards have improved thanks to a Chinese agricultural pilot program launched nearly a decade ago. Some 1,000 families in 2 villages in Kandal province continue to benefit from the China-Cambodia Poverty Reduction Project. Mao Sripich reports from Svei and Pierre.
The project was implemented between 2017 and 2020 in the village of Svai Ompir and Chaitipu. China built new homes, repaired old ones, and provided a clean water supply, toilet, cattle shed, and cows to residents. Villagers were also taught how to cultivate vegetables, chilies, and tropical oyster mushroom.
Upon receiving this project, several families had creative ideas. Chinese experts taught them to grow in pots, but now they have started to expand it to grow in the ground, and they have started to plant other vegetables, such as winter melon, cucumber, and bitter melon on a large scale. So their livelihood has improved. But the challenge is the market, as the prices have dropped, so some farmers lost income. They sometimes give up and stop doing it.
This family is one of the few that still cultivate tropical oyster mushroom here.
My life before was very difficult. At the time, I didn't have a home yet, and I lived in a hut. After they introduced me to this project, my life changed and improved a lot. Before, I incurred debt for building a house, but now I'm able to pay them back after farming mushrooms. It's a lot better. These mushrooms will become my main business. But if there's anything else I can explore in business, I will also expand.
Ngits has taught other villagers how to grow oyster mushroom, empowering them to establish their own farms.
I plant mushrooms in 3 factories. These 2 factories have around 20,000 packages of mushrooms, and this one has around 7,000 packages of mushrooms. Also, I get to teach my neighbor and 2 sisters how to grow these mushrooms. Each of them plants about 7,000 packages of mushrooms in a factory now.
The single mother lives with her 2 children in a home built by the Poverty Reduction Project.
My mother saw me struggling to live in a hut, and she asked China to build this house for me. Without this support, I don't have the capacity to build my own house because I cannot earn anything. When I lived in a hut, it was very difficult. It sank when it rained.
5 years after it was put up, local communities continue to feel the positive impact of the China's Cambodia Poverty Reduction Project.
The Cambodia-China Friendship Medical Building in Phnom Penh is one of the most modern facilities in the country, offering high-tech services and traditional Chinese medicine treatment. Built with over $18 million of Chinese aid, the hospital stands as a symbol of deepening cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative. CGTN's Sukina Aluwalia has the latest for us.
In the heart of Phnom Penh, a new symbol of healthcare and friendship stands tall. The Cambodia-China Friendship Medical Building officially opened its doors in March 2022, marking a major milestone in both countries' partnership. It's now considered one of the most modern hospitals in Cambodia, with 400 beds, treatment services in more than 30 specialties, and some of the country's most advanced technology.
Our hospital reflects the culture of Cambodia. It's highly modernized. This symbolizes the friendship between China and Cambodia and provides good medical care for the Cambodian people.
This hospital was designed with both technology and sustainability in mind. It includes solar power systems, natural ventilation, and green infrastructure. They also offer traditional Chinese medicine remedies, and for local patients, it's the affordable care that matters the most.
Here, the doctors really look after the patients and they don't think about money first. I'm able to pay in instalments. That helps me.
Cambodia's Prime Minister calls this a milestone and an important development under the Belt and Road Initiative. From political partnership to personal healing, this hospital is so much more than just infrastructure. It's a living story of cooperation, compassion, and a shared future between China and Cambodia. Silkina Aluwalia, CGTN, Phnom Penh.
And let's pick up our conversation with our guests here in the studio. I do want to talk to the both of you about poverty alleviation, beginning with you, Professor Liu. How can China's success in poverty alleviation lend a hand to Cambodia?
Actually, Cambodia has been suffering from the same level of regional disparity. I traveled almost all across their land. And you also see modern cities, great hospitals, and even great casinos, and all the way down to small villages who have very little connection with the rest of the country. So still, infrastructure connectivity is the precondition for them to be able first to be able to see what are those better job opportunities and to promote mobility of resources so they can send their mango to bigger cities to sell for a better price. And so the poverty alleviation program is not only totally dependent on the government transfer of budget, but the people's mobility. Look at that, nearly 300 million Chinese farmers are working in the cities to bring back the money they have earned and to build houses and to support their local entrepreneurship, etc. So the connectivity that's there to support a mobility of resource is something that is extremely important. The other is that a scientific operation from the seeding of their agricultural produce to the added value in the process and together with support of modern equipment can also give them better price-making capacity in that regard. And third is to expand the marketplace. Now, you see that the mangoes they sent to China can really earn, by my broad calculation, they can earn at least 30% higher than they are able to be sold domestically. And then the, again, capacity building, so that those younger people can learn all the new skills in online streaming, in the e-commerce, and in dealing with drones to look after the crop, etc. So this is something that is there to ensure the poverty alleviation can be not only a temporary relief, but rather a more sustainable way to bring all people out of poverty and going for prosperity.
And really, experience sharing has been an important part of bilateral cooperation. And we were talking about this idea of poverty alleviation. I'm pretty sure that Professor Liu and Ms. Han have taken note of the fact that there were the poverty alleviation demonstration villages across the country in Cambodia. And they were really incorporating a lot of Chinese experiences like modern agriculture, its connection to the e-commerce platforms, as well as vocational training, so on and so forth. How do these initiatives change the everyday life of the farmers in Cambodia?
I think you have already tapped a lot of experiences China can share with Cambodia regarding the next step, poverty alleviation. I actually have a friend who is a Western country diplomat who wants to have a second home in the Asian country and after retirement. And she shared with me that she visited Cambodia several years ago, and after the COVID, and especially after the COVID, and she found out that with surprise that all the modern parts are actually built with to some extent the help with China. So this is one amazing example for her to realize that how China has been helping Cambodia, including experience sharing, but also including tell them the capacity and the skill sets, learning for the Cambodian people, for them to build their own capacity and the capabilities with the next step, poverty alleviation. We have a Chinese proverb saying that the advantage of late start, 后发优势, meaning that we don't need to share with them how we start the poverty alleviation from the 20 years ago, how we encourage the migrant workers to work in the cities, and how they can return back to their villages to not only give the cash but also to give other inputs and contribution to the villages, to poor part. And probably we don't need to start from the very beginning to tell them how the rural education is important to the next generation's development of their own skill sets. But now with the new age, probably we can share with them the most recent technology, like how to develop the digital economy in the rural areas, how to set for example, the elite class, the middle income class people, to have them, to encourage them, to even incentivize them to go to the villages on their own, to be on the spot village manager, or to somewhat integrate with the village people, to share with them their own experiences or their own skill sets with the rural people. I think this kind of evolving sharing of the experiences of our ongoing poverty alleviation, because we have to confess we still have a lot to improve in our village or in our rural people's life and well-being. So these kind of ongoing experience sharing, practices sharing, I think are more crucial to the Cambodian people right now at this moment.
Evolving really is the key word, as you mentioned. The way China assists really is evolving also as China develops and enabling the late bloomer, as mentioned by Ms. Han. Thank you so much. China and Cambodia share a long history of cultural links. From dances to martial arts, their age-old cultural bond is promoting new forms of exchanges. Our reporter Ding Siyue has this story.
The Apsara dance has its roots in mythological tales where celestial maidens danced for the god, eventually becoming a court dance. Its most notable feature is the graceful and intricate hand movements. A 16-year-old Cambodian Apsara dancer once showcased this dance at the Harbin Ice and Snow Festival.
Videos of my performances have been watched over 17 million times on my platform. Cambodian friends have learned about Harbin, and my performance has helped Harbin friends appreciate the Cambodian Apsara dance. This makes me very happy.
China is renowned for its martial arts, while Cambodia is known for Bo Katar, an ancient combat form inspired by legendary Cambodian warriors fighting lions. Both draw from a common source of inspiration.
To foster cultural exchange between China and Cambodia, we have performed in China's Henan province. These exchange activities have also encouraged tourism between the two countries.
April is the traditionally new year in Cambodia, but it's also the hottest time of the year. Just a few steps and you're soaked in sweat. But fortunately, locals have the Cambodian krama to help beat the heat. The krama is seen as a versatile cloth locally. Interestingly, the Chaozhou region in China also shares a similar krama culture.
It's used to shield oneself from the sun and wipe away sweat.
Looking at old photos, Chaozhou people also used the same krama. So perhaps long ago, China and Cambodia had very close interactions.
These cultural treasures not only celebrate the unique identities of each nation, but also highlight the enduring bonds. 丁思月 CGTN.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni at the Royal Palace. On his way to Royal Palace, he was warmly welcomed by the local people. Xi arrived in Phnom Penh earlier today and was greeted at the airport by Cambodia King Norodom Sihamoni. President Xi said China-Cambodia relations have withstood the test of global transformations and remain rock solid. The Chinese president also noted that he looks forward to further cementing this friendship and promoting greater cooperation with Cambodia.
And that is our special coverage for now. Our thanks go out to Ms. Han Hua, co-founder and Secretary General of the Beijing Club for International Dialogue. Of course, Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics.
Thank you so much. Now, that'll do it for our special coverage of Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit to Cambodia. CGTN will certainly follow the latest events as the visit continues to unfold.
I'm Zhong Shi.
I'm Wang Wangmang.
Thank you so much for watching.
See you soon.
Today on The Vibe, from Apsara dance to Bakator, we take a look at the cultural reflections highlighting historical connections between China and Cambodia. Bursting with taste, dive into the mouth-watering flavors of Malaysia's culinary scene. China's Film Bureau has announced that it will reduce the number of US imported movies in favor of the ever-growing Chinese cinema market. Diplomatic adventure. Over 20 diplomats to China are exploring the history and technology of Jiangxi province. Hey there, and welcome to The Vibe on CGTN. I'm your host, Leonie Zoomer in Beijing. Thanks for tuning in. Here at The Vibe, where you go to destination for all things art and culture every weekday. As Chinese President Xi Jinping continues his Southeast Asian tour with Cambodia as his third stop, we take a look at Cambodia's Apsara dance, Bakator and Krama, which are all recognized by UNESCO as cultural treasures. Let's journey to Cambodia to dive into the cultural links between the two nations.
The Apsara dance has its roots in mythological tales where celestial maidens danced for the god, eventually becoming a court dance. Its most notable feature is the graceful and intricate hand movements. A 16-year-old Cambodian Apsara dancer once showcased his dance at the Harbin Ice and Snow Festival.
Videos of my performances have been watched over 17 million times on my platform. Cambodian friends have learned about Harbin, and my performance has helped Harbin friends appreciate the Cambodian Apsara dance. This makes me very happy.
China is renowned for its martial arts, while Cambodia is known for Bakator, an ancient combat form inspired by legendary Cambodian warriors fighting lions. Both draw from a common source of inspiration.
To foster cultural exchange between China and Cambodia, we have performed in China's Henan province. These exchange activities have also encouraged tourism between the two countries.
April is the traditionally new year in Cambodia, but it's also the hottest time of the year. Just a few steps and you're soaked in sweat. But fortunately, locals have the Cambodian krama to help beat the heat. The krama is seen as a versatile cloth locally. Interestingly, the Chaozhou region in China also shares a similar krama culture.
It's used to shield oneself from the sun and wipe away sweat.
Looking at old photos, Chaozhou people also used the same krama. So perhaps long ago, China and Cambodia had very close interactions.
These cultural treasures not only celebrate the unique identities of each nation, but also highlight the enduring bonds. 顶4月 CGTN.
The Khmer New Year is the biggest celebration of the year in Cambodia. The vibrant 3-day festival marks the start of the traditional calendar. It's all about family reunions, temple offerings, and spirited water fights. Our reporter Huang Fei takes part in the festivities together with a local podcaster.
They say New Year is about fresh starts, joy, and togetherness. Hello. And the Cambodian New Year, it's all that. And a whole lot wetter.
Happy New Year! Well, it's New Year in Cambodia, and what better way to soak in the spirit than starting our day right in the heart of the city. And I'm joined by local podcaster Sakura. Hi, Sakura.
Hi, Jumrip. Right now we are at iconic Central Market.
The Central Market has been a landmark since 1937. Touristy? Yes, but locals still come here to prep for New Year.
We prepare the flower, we prepare the food, and especially for the fruit to welcome the angel. And we wish for the new year, the angel bring us a lot. We also use the lotto for the Buddha and also for the welcome the angel.
So Sakura, in my culture, we actually also prepare lots of flowers for the new year, and different flowers have different meanings.
We also take that flower for the celebrate on the Khmer New Year. But when the government or maybe the royal family, they hold the ceremony, they use that kind of flower.
Yeah, it does have this regal feeling to it.
And just like the Chinese New Year, there's decorating, praying, and a lot of eating.
These are traditional green bean and coconut. Delicious.
Yeah.
But something else here feels familiar.
Hello.
你好，新年快乐。生日快乐。有 Alipay。
还有微信支付。
是。
This market knows its audience. Some vendors have been here for decades.
哦，我们在这里30多年了。
Others are just getting started, ready to hustle.
我看这里有中国过来买很多，我可以说啊。
你就是在这里自学的？
对。
你好年轻啊。
我25。
25。
对。没有老婆。
Clearly, this market is where everything happens. But after all that heat, it's time to cool off somewhere else.
Hello! And we are on the Mekong River.
Some people, they don't plan to go to another province. They can come to riverside, take a boat, and enjoy the sunset.
As Sakura heads home to her family, I wasn't ready to call it a night, because the real party is just getting started.
Well, you can't say you've really celebrated Khmer New Year if you haven't been part of the water fight, and it seems the entire city is here. Oh, hi, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
The water is supposed to wash away your sins and bad luck from the previous year, and the powder just smells nice. And I'm getting absolutely soaked. So I hope 2025 is going to be a splendid year for me. Woo!
Dancing through the streets, drenched in excitement, Khmer New Year is a time to reconnect, reset, and step into the future together. And that spirit is something we all share across Asia, across cultures.
That looked like so much fun. The China Academy of Cultural Heritage was one of the earliest international contributors to the preservation of the sprawling jungle-buried Angkor Wat temple complex, and those restoration efforts have been widely celebrated. In this story, we'll explore the ongoing preservation efforts and hear directly from those involved in this exciting project.
Early in the morning, Yan Ming from the China Academy of Cultural Heritage, together with other members of his team, began their restoration work at the Angkor Wat site in Cambodia.
What we can see now is that this area is partially sinking. We need to remove it and reinforce the base before restoring these structures to their original layout.
In 2018, the Cambodian government enlisted the expertise of the Chinese team to restore the ruined royal palace, the heart of Angkor Thom, which was the last capital of the Khmer Empire. Built in the late 11th century, this site bore witness to the glory of the magnificent empire. Cui Shaijie joined the Royal Palace Restoration Project a year ago and is now responsible for sorting and labeling the damaged and fragmented pieces of stone discovered on site.
What we are doing in this area now is to label and number the pieces of stone found here. We then group them together. These numberings will enable us to piece the stone back to its original form as we complete the restoration work.
The latest technologies, including artificial intelligence, are also being deployed to locate any fallen bricks from these crumbling temples of antiquity. The restoration of the royal palace site is expected to be completed in 2030. Lin Lin, CGTN.
Nestled in the heart of Southeast Asia, Malaysia's culinary scene is a vibrant mosaic of flavors and traditions. It's a living testament to centuries of cultural intermingling, resulting in dishes that are bursting with taste and rich in history. Join us as we delve deeper into this vivid world, guided by two passionate individuals who are channeling their creativity into celebrating Malaysia's rich food culture.
In the heart of Southeast Asia, Malaysia's culinary landscape paints a vivid picture. Here, every dish is a canvas. Every ingredient a stroke of brilliance, telling tales of centuries-old traditions and influences.
People come together due to food. It doesn't matter what race you are, religion, the food brings togetherness. Malaysia is a very diverse country, and it shows in the food itself. That's why I'm inspired to bring this to life through my illustrations, because that's how I see Malaysia. It's a bright, lively country full of diversity.
Avi's canvases capture the essence of dishes that tell the stories of Malaysia's culinary heritage.
Everything is related to colors. How we not only use what we have around us to make those food, but how it is deeply rooted into our local heritage and culture that we try to preserve. For instance, nasi kerabu. The colors by the butterfly blue pea flower is so enticing. It's not only delicious to eat, but it also draws me into how we make food based on the colors of the rainbow.
Nasi kerabu is a symphony of colors on a plate. It's a testament to Malaysia's affinity for combining natural beauty with culinary art.
Dalam hidangan nasi kerabu, dia warna utama adalah warna biru. Nasi tu warna biru hasil daripada sejenis bunga. Kita akan blender dan kita akan masak dengan nasi. Dan warna-warna yang lain kita dapat daripada bunga kantan, kita ada carrot, warna merah, warna hijau, warna putih, warna biru, semua ada.
Salah satu yang menarik perhatian saya untuk datang ke kedai ini adalah masakan dia adalah nasi kerabu. Nasi dia adalah unik. Dari mata turun ke hati. Itulah yang saya tengok pada nasi kerabu dan masakan di Malaysia ini.
Keistimewaan makanan di Malaysia ni terlalu banyak. Kalau kita daripada selatan ke utara ke timur, kita akan jumpa banyak makanan. Kalau kita ke Kelantan, kita akan nampak banyak makanan yang berunsur warna-warna. Yang dekat Kelantan ni sangat menarik adalah kuih-kuih sebenarnya. Dia ada warna hijau, warna kuning dan warna biru.
In Malaysia, food is not just for sustenance. It's an expression of culture, a celebration of heritage, and above all, a testament to the nation's history and diversity.
I want people to know more, understand more, and appreciate more about Malaysian culture. I want people to be intrigued to learn more about it through the colors. And everything that I do in my art has a meaning behind it.
Each dish in Malaysia paints its own tale of tradition, unity, and heritage, reminding us that food is more than just fuel for our bodies. It also captures the essence of a nation's soul.
Relations between China and Malaysia are rooted in centuries of migration, trade, and cultural exchange. One example is the unique Baba Nyonya culture, a vibrant blend of Chinese traditions and Southeast Asian heritage. Reporter Zhu Xiying explores this unique culture through its fashion, language, and mouth-watering cuisine.
Tucked away in the heart of Beijing, the Overseas Chinese History Museum offers a glimpse into the world of the Baba Nyonya, the descendants of Chinese immigrants who settled in Malaysia over 600 years ago. The story begins with Admiral Zheng He's legendary voyages during China's Ming Dynasty.
And when his fleet reached Malacca, some crew members stayed behind, laying the foundation for what will later become the Baba Nyonya, or the Peranakan Chinese community.
Over the generations, Chinese settlers intermarried with local Malays, creating a rich, hybrid culture.
Let's break it down. Baba refers to the men, while Nyonya, the women. They're known for their fashion styles and craftsmanship.
Intricate cabayas, colorful shoes, and dazzling brooches. each piece tells its own story.
This is a traditional Nyonya wedding dress. You can see Chinese elements like the loong and phoenix in the design. And this is a metal makeup bag Nyonyas used. From things like this, you can tell they lived quite an affluent life.
Wow, that's so chic and ornate. 这些他们可能平常就穿戴，对吗？对。So these weren't just reserved for special occasions. These could be their everyday fashion.
We recreated a traditional Baba Nyonya wedding scene. The groom wears red on top, a classic Chinese wedding color, and turquoise green below, which is considered a lucky color in Malay culture.
If you look at colors, the embroidery, and the home decor, you could definitely see Chinese motifs woven into every detail.
But the fusion doesn't stop there. The Baba Nyonya language and cuisine reveal even deeper connections.
They speak a mix of Malay and China's Hokkien dialect. Let's see if I could pronounce some of these Malay words. So te, that's for tea, tahu, tofu, and mi for noodles. Okay, I've tried my best. After soaking in all that history and style, I'm officially inspired and a little hungry, especially after reading all these words about food. Now, let's go taste some Baba Nyonya flavor.
When it comes to their cuisine, Babas and Nyonyas have blended Chinese techniques with fragrant Southeast Asian spices.
All right, we've got some typical Peranakan food here. Let's see, laska, ancha or salad, inchi kapin or fried chicken. Laska, let's see, it's shrimp, boiled egg, some veggies, and which is just only, it's a coconut milk-based broth. A little spicy, tangy, but very creamy.
While many Baba Nyonya dishes trace their roots to Chinese cuisines from Fujian or Guangdong, it's the distinct Southeast Asian twist that sets them apart.
This is cultural diplomacy at its most delicious.
Whether through silk abayas or steaming bowls of curry, the Baba Nyonya is a testament to how cultures can come together and thrive. A legacy of connections that brings China and Malaysia closer to this day. Zhu Xing, CGTN, Beijing.
Still to come, China's Film Bureau has announced that it will reduce the number of U.S. imported movies in favor of the ever-growing Chinese cinema market. Jiangxi province has welcomed over 20 diplomats to explore its rich history and innovative technology. You're watching The Vibe. So good to have you with us because we have more stories for you. China's Film Bureau has announced it will moderately reduce the number of American movie imports in response to Washington's latest tariff hikes. As our investigation reveals, this policy change coincides with a seismic shift in Chinese viewing habits, with homegrown films increasingly shining over the spotlight of Hollywood blockbusters.
In Beijing's multiplexes, the marquees tell a telling story. Chinese productions now take center stage, reflecting not just policy adjustments, but a fundamental change in audience preferences.
Domestic productions now dominate our screens because viewers' tastes are evolving. In recent years, we've seen a noticeable drop in American visual effects heavy films. The shift is reshaping our entire programming strategy.
This transformation is playing out in the world's second largest film market, with over 80,000 screens and more than 1 billion admissions in 2024 alone. As Chinese productions dramatically improve in quality, they're rewriting the industry's power dynamics.
From our interviews at this Beijing cinema, I found that quiet change has already taken place in viewing habits among Chinese viewers. Some of them once came to the cinema specifically for Hollywood blockbusters. But as domestic film industry has seen great improvement in recent years, many say that U.S. movies no longer command automatic priority.
I rarely watch American movies. Chinese films simply tell better stories that resonate with me.
Hollywood movies don't really appeal to me these days. I prefer our domestic productions, especially comedies with depth or films that explore meaningful themes.
Some viewers remain loyal to Hollywood franchises.
I love action franchises like Fast and Furious or American crime thrillers, the sci-fi and animated features too.
But even these fans admit reduced imports of American films would not significantly impact their cinema-going experience.
It wouldn't bother me too much. Chinese films have come such a long way in quality anyway.
As China recalibrates its Hollywood imports, it's actively diversifying international collaborations, including a new film cooperation pact signed with Spain last week that promises fresh cinematic exchanges. From American dominance to domestic resonance, China's film market is undergoing its most profound transformation in decades, driven not only by policy decisions, but also the powerful verdict of audience choices. Li Qiong, CGTN, Beijing.
At the Osaka Expo, the China Pavilion has captivated global audiences with its theme centered on the harmony between humanity and nature. A notable highlight is the exhibit of Yundang Lake from Xiamen, which stands as the sole independently presented regional case. Let's take a closer look at how this coastal city is sharing its story of ecological transformation on the world stage.
The China Pavilion is one of the largest self-constructed foreign pavilions at the 2025 World Expo. Under the theme Building a Community of Life for Human and Nature, a Future Society of Green Development, it showcases China's rich traditional heritage, accomplishments in ecological conservation, and advancements in biodiversity governance. Among the displays, the Yundang Lake Initiative from Xiamen in southern China distinctly emerges as the only independently highlighted regional case within the China Pavilion. Through immersive digital visuals, the exhibition highlights Xiamen's efforts in fostering harmonious coexistence between human and nature.
今天在大阪世博会呢，看到了美丽的云当湖，这是我第一次听说到这个湖呢，我对它的治理印象非常的深刻。如果有机会，我非常想去厦门一睹云当湖的风采。
Last year, the Yundang Lake project was selected from numerous entries across China to represent China's urban ecological governance at the expo. On June 1st, the China Pavilion will celebrate Xiamen Day, featuring a series of themed events to promote the city to a global audience.
在今年的城市活动日期间呢，我们将会策划举办一系列的内容丰富、形式多样的这种配套活动，文化展演、旅游推介、经贸对接、友城交流、厦门优品展示以及企业的洽谈走访、考察等等，借助世博会的这个平台，讲好厦门故事，展示城市魅力，链接全球资源。
丁思月 CGTN。
Over 20 diplomats to China are wrapping up a 3-day tour of East China's Jiangxi province, taking in the region's history, technology, and culture. Yu Li has more.
We're at the China Ceramics Museum in Jingdezhen, the capital of porcelain located in East China's Jiangxi province. A group of diplomats is visiting here.
The diplomats glide through chambers, leaning in to trace the delicate veins of porcelain unearthed from ancient times.
Very much, and I said that I would like to come to live here in Jingdezhen.
In Taoyang Alley, a 1,000-year-old historical and cultural block with restored ancient kiln bricks in Jingdezhen City, the ambassadors and envoys made their own pottery.
What does that mean?
我是卢瓦美内加计划大学，我喜欢和中国外交官共事。
The ambassador of Mauritania to China, M. Abdullahi El Vilali, has a pair of shrimp depicted on his
You're such a
pottery.
good painter. Is it shrimp?
I love the ceramic culture. I think it's absolutely beautiful. You know, Cyprus is a very ancient country like China, 10,000 years of history. So if you visit my country, you will see many similarities between the pots that we find here in the Stone Age and the pots that we find in Cyprus.
President Xi was here. It's fascinating to see that President Xi, and it goes to the volume of his leadership, whereby he pays attention and commitment to to all the parts of the country, whereby there are certain key sectors and key industries where he encourages development and also the protection of China's culture heritage. So that photo there speaks volume of his commitment to protect China's culture and heritage.
The trip lasted 3 days from Monday to Wednesday. 于丽 CGTN 景德镇 in Jiangxi Province.
If you thought seeing one Doraemon was cute, imagine being surrounded by 100. A veritable forest of Doraemon sculptures has taken over downtown Shanghai, transforming the area into a page out of a comic book. Zhang Yue was there and brings us some of the highlights of the event.
Right behind me, there's a forest of nearly 100 Doraemon sculptures. It's like stepping into the pages of a Doraemon comic book.
The event is meant to set the stage for the mainland tour of the 100% Doraemon and Friends exhibition. It made its debut in Hong Kong in July of 2024.
找了所有的蓝色元素，就蓝，然后蓝，然后都别起来了，然后就觉得要跟它颜色像一点，显得有那个夫妻相啊，什么不是这样？我一直觉得动漫小孩和大人都可以看，所以我感觉只要你有童心，只要你还比较中二二次元一点，都会喜欢。
What's going on? Why the long face?
Many of these sculptures are modeled after movies of everyone's favorite blue robot cat. There are also a few of them that have been given a distinctly Chinese makeover. But obviously, the one drawing the most eyes is the massive 12-meter-tall inflatable Doraemon. It's kind of hard to miss.
It's like a colossal blue giant watching over us all. I mean, it's still very cute, but I feel incredibly small standing next to it. And look at this one. It got this goofy look on its face, as if it's just about to pull out some crazy gadget from the magical pocket.
小时候就觉得充满了很多我对未来的那种梦想，或者是我对生活的那种期待，好像看到哆啦 A 梦就什么问题都没有了，已经成为一个成年人了，会发现哇塞，我自己还是有很多这种梦想。
A range of merchandise, such as a dorayaki cosplay plush keychain with a cake-like scent, and a sweet potato Doraemon collection will be available for fans to take home.
Shanghai is a very good place for exhibition. You know, I know like there's a 2,000 exhibition every year here. So I think, yes, we love to join and come here.
We want to bring the community together. It's not only for our shoppers, but also for our surroundings. It's to build up that ambience when people come and they can enjoy themselves.
Zhang Yue, SMG International for CGTN.
And with that, we wrap up today's edition of The Vibe. But before we go, we invite you to take a look at Cambodia's beauty. I'm Leonie Zimmer from the capital. Thanks for watching. Stay cultured, stay curious, and stay tuned for more news coming up on CGTN.
Hello and welcome to The World Today, everyone. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. Let's begin with our top story. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni. President Xi is on a two-day state visit to Cambodia. This is the last stop of his three-nation Southeast Asian tour, including Vietnam and Malaysia. Xi's visit comes after an invitation from the Cambodian king, who held a welcome ceremony for him at the airport. CGTN's Tang Bo reports from Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh.
It is very hot in here in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, just like the atmosphere welcoming the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And this is Hun Sen Park in downtown Phnom Penh. As you can see behind me, that there are a lot of the Chinese national flags and, of course, the Cambodian national flags welcoming the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And early in the morning, as we arrive into this live position, we've seen a lot of local residents gathering along the streets to greet the arrival of President Xi Jinping. And I talked to them, asking about their expectations. They told me that they were looking forward to the state visit, which they believe would improve the mutual trust and, of course, enhance the economic cooperation. This is President Xi Jinping's second visit to Cambodia in 9 years. And according to the local media, that President Xi Jinping is expected to meet with King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen and Prime Minister Hun Manet. And one day before President Xi Jinping's arrival, that the Cambodian Prime Minister released a welcoming video online saying that he's looking forward to discussing with President Xi Jinping and charting a course of action for the future development of the bilateral cooperations. And in his speech, Manet called the China-Cambodia bond the strongest, comparing it to iron regarding the partnership in various fields between the two countries. And that's echoed with the Central Conference of China's foreign neighborhood diplomacy, which noted that the relationships between China and its neighboring countries, including Cambodia, of course, is right now in its best period of the modern times, and the relationships have entered the stage of interconnections between regional cooperation and the evolving global landscape. Experts say that the state visit reaffirms the ironclad friendships between the two countries. Last year, the trade volume between the two countries increased 13% to over 15 billion US dollars. And experts say that China is already Cambodia's largest trading partner and, of course, a very important source of foreign direct investment. So this time, the state visit is expected to reach new agreements in the areas of trade, infrastructure, and education, of course, people-to-people exchange. And also, experts said that the support from China is very important for the country to diversify away from its garment manufacturing towards the more high value-added manufacturing like electronics, automotive parts, and of course infrastructure, education, digital economy, and of course agro-economy.
Cambodia is the last stop of Chinese President Xi Jinping's Southeast Asia tour. Before Xi's arrival in Phnom Penh, Cambodian media outlets published his signed article. Chen Yuan has more.
Just ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's arrival for a two-day state visit to Cambodia, locals will find his signed article featured on the front pages of Cambodian media outlets, including the Khmer Times, Jinhua Daily, and Fresh News.
In the article titled "Together We Strive, Together We Thrive Toward a Stable and Sustainable China-Cambodia Community with a Shared Future in the New Era," Xi says China has been Cambodia's largest trading partner and largest source of investment, with China-supported infrastructure projects bolstering the long-term development of the country.
China has helped Cambodia build roads, facilitating people's travel. That's friendship.
She said that China and Cambodia should bring their mutual political trust to a higher level and expand their mutually beneficial cooperation of higher quality.
When I hear the president is paying a visit, I am happy. As a Khmer, I offer my support.
President Xi describes China's friendship with Cambodia as ironclad, and his article reflects this friendship, reaffirming China's steadfast commitment to further enhancing bilateral ties. Chen Yuan, CGTN, Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
The bond between China and Cambodia continues to strengthen, marked by deepening political trust, thriving economic ties, and vibrant people-to-people exchanges. Here's an overview.
China and Cambodia established diplomatic relations in 1958, laying the foundation for a lasting friendship. In 2010, the two countries elevated ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation. In 2019, Cambodia became the first nation to sign an action plan with China to build a community with a shared future. By 2023, the initiative entered a new era, marked by high quality, high level and high standards. Bilateral cooperation has achieved milestones in key sectors. China remains Cambodia's largest trading partner. Bilateral trade flourishes under the China-Cambodia Free Trade Agreement, which took effect on January 2022. It's also Cambodia's first bilateral FTA. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, the Sihanoukville Special Economic Zone stands out. The zone hit record-breaking trade volumes of more than $4 billion in 2024. Over 200 enterprises from China, Europe, the US and Southeast Asia generate some 32,000 jobs for Cambodians. The Chinese-built Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway is Cambodia's first high-speed toll road, cutting travel time between the capital and the key port from more than 5 hours to under 2 hours. Bilateral cooperation in tourism and cultural sectors is also growing. 2024 was designated as Cambodia-China People-to-People Exchange Year. More than 840,000 Chinese tourists travel to Cambodia. The country expects more tourists this year, with 2025 designated as the Cambodia-China Year of Tourism. From the comprehensive strategic partnership to the innovative Diamond Hexagon cooperation framework that spans politics, industry, agriculture, energy, security and culture, China and Cambodia push forward the building of a community with a shared future.
Before his state visit to Cambodia, Chinese President Xi Jinping was in Malaysia. During talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, President Xi said China-Malaysia ties are entering a new golden era.
In talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, Chinese President Xi Jinping first hailed the fruitful results yielded during the past 50 years of diplomatic ties. Looking ahead to the next 50 years, President Xi called on the two countries to build a high-level strategic China-Malaysia community with a shared future. To achieve this, he put forward a three-point proposal. First, Xi urged the two countries to adhere to strategic independence and carry out high-level strategic coordination. Second, he said China and Malaysia should build synergy for development and set a model for high-quality development cooperation. Last, Xi called for both sides to carry forward their friendship from generation to generation and deepen exchanges and mutual learning. The Chinese president also expressed support for Malaysia's role as ASEAN's rotating chair. He said China is ready to work with countries in the region to sign the China-ASEAN Free Trade Area Upgrade Protocol at an early date. On the tariff issue, President Xi urged joint efforts to reject decoupling, supply disruption and tariff abuse. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim warmly welcomed President Xi's state visit. Anwar said Malaysia is willing to deepen strategic communication with China and consolidate political mutual trust. He also expressed willingness to expand bilateral trade, receive more Chinese investment, and strengthen cooperation in emerging technology sectors such as digital economy, green economy, and AI, and artificial intelligence. Anwar also said ASEAN would not endorse any unilaterally imposed tariffs. After the talks, the two leaders jointly witnessed the exchange of more than 30 bilateral cooperation documents, covering cooperation on three major global initiatives: digital economy, trade in services, railways, intellectual property, and agriculture. The two sides also issued a joint statement on building a high-level strategic China-Malaysia community with a shared future.
Kenya's President William Ruto will visit China on a 4-day state tour beginning on April the 22nd. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Ruto's visit was at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The visit will be Ruto's second trip to China in 6 months following his recent tour last September. Another significant news, over 20 diplomats to China are wrapping up a 3-day tour of East China's Jiangxi province on Wednesday, taking in the region's history, technology, and culture. Yu Li reports.
We're at the China Ceramics Museum in Jingdezhen, the capital of porcelain located in East China's Jiangxi province. A group of diplomats is visiting here.
The diplomats glide through chambers, leaning in to trace the delicate veins of porcelain unearthed from ancient times.
Very much, and I said that I would like to come to live here in Jingdezhen.
In Taoyang Alley, a 1,000-year-old historical and cultural block with restored ancient kiln bricks in Jingdezhen city, the ambassadors and envoys make their own pottery.
What does that mean?
我是读我们那家中华大学，我喜欢和中国外交官共治。
The ambassador of Mauritania to China, M. Abdullahi El Vilali, has a pair of shrimp depicted on his
You're such a
pottery.
good painter. Is it shrimp?
I love the ceramic culture. I think it's absolutely beautiful. You know, Cyprus is a very ancient country like China, 10,000 years of history. So if you visit my country, you will see many similarities between the pots that we find here in the Stone Age and the pots that we find in Cyprus.
President Xi was here. It's fascinating to see that President Xi, and it goes to the volume of his leadership, whereby he pays attention and commitment to to all the parts of the country, whereby there are certain key sectors and key industries where he encourages development and also the protection of China's culture heritage. So that photo there speaks volume of his commitment to protect China's culture and heritage.
The trip lasted 3 days from Monday to Wednesday. Yu Li, CGTN, Jingdezhen in Jiangxi province.
China says it will ignore the United States' recent tariff hikes, calling them a meaningless game. The Chinese Commerce Ministry made the remarks after the U.S. imposed 245% tariffs on certain products from China. The ministry said the U.S. has weaponized tariffs to an irrational level. China has vowed to take firm countermeasures and fight to the end if the U.S. persists in undermining China's interest. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has again said there is no winner in a tariff war or a trade war. And China does not want to fight, but it is not afraid to fight. Amid escalating trade tensions between China and the U.S., the World Trade Organization has cut its trade forecast for the rest of the year. It warns that tariffs and ongoing policy uncertainty will reverse trends in growth. Well, that is it for this edition of The World Today. I will be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching. At least 50 killed after boat catches fire and capsizes in the DR Congo. The UN envoy urges Security Council to try to prevent renewed civil war in South Sudan. And over 1 million people living in extremely precarious conditions after displacement camps in eastern DRC are destroyed. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi, and for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Coming up in business, the DR Congo President Tshisekedi calls on African trade ministers to deepen partnerships amid U.S. tariffs on imports. And in sports, Gabonese striker Aaron Bupenza dies after a fall from a building in China. Once again, a very warm welcome to Africa Live. We begin in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where at least 50 people have died and hundreds are missing after a boat caught fire and capsized on the Congo River. And that's according to the river commissioner, who said the incident happened late Tuesday night near the town of Mbandaka. He said the wooden boat ferrying about 400 passengers caught fire after one of them began cooking while on board. Several passengers died after jumping into the water without being able to swim. At least 100 survivors are currently receiving treatment in an improvised shelter at the Mbandaka Town Hall, many of them with burns. Search operations for the missing have been ongoing. And to Somalia now, where al-Shabaab militants have attacked Aden Yabal, a strategic town located in the country's central region. Government forces have been using the town as an operation base in their efforts to curb the insurgency. Al-Shabaab claims to have seized control of the town on Wednesday. However, the Somali army disputes the battle outcome, saying government troops had pushed back the militants. There were no reports of casualties. Al-Shabaab has been fighting the Somali government since 2007. Well, let's get more on this. Mohammed Kahir is in Mogadishu and joins us live for more. Mohammed, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Kahir, what is the latest on Al-Shabaab capturing the strategic town of Aden Yabal?
Well, Richard, a very big setback as far as the ongoing operations against Al-Shabaab is concerned for the Somali government. Aden Yabal, a town in Middle Shabelle region, fell in the hands of Al-Shabaab on Wednesday after the government troops recaptured in 2002. This is a town which is very strategic in terms of the movement of troops and logistics hub. And Al-Shabaab have confirmed that they are in full control of the town, and multiple sources on the ground have also confirmed that Al-Shabaab are in control of the town. The government forces, the Somali government forces and the local clan militias are now stationed outside the town and are expected, according to military commanders from Somalia, to launch an attack. Several efforts are ongoing to try and recapture the town, especially this morning, where several airstrikes have been conducted, killing at least 10 militants and stopping more reinforcement of Al-Shabaab militants into this strategic town. So a big setback for the Somali government in the fight against armed group Al-Shabaab. This town was recaptured from Al-Shabaab, as I've said, in 2002 in the offensive that was launched by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. And Al-Shabaab keeps coming back to this town because of its strategic location. So we're expecting the government troops to, according to the military sources, to launch an attack to recapture this strategic town in the next coming hours. And we will give you an update on what's happening on the ground.
Mohammed Kahir, you've mentioned it's a strategic town. It's a very important town. What is the significance of the town actually being taken over by Al-Shabaab? Can you break that down for us?
Well, yes, it's very, very strategic town located in the Middle Shabelle region, an intersection to the Hirshabelle state and also Galmudug state. So whoever is in control of Aden Yabal controls the exit and entry of military forces and also other basic logistics supplies to these regions. That's why Al-Shabaab has been fighting back and forth to try and to capture this town. So it's very, very strategic in a sense that whoever is in control of this town militarily has an upper hand. That is why Al-Shabaab has been fighting for so long, and it has been in control for this town for the past 10 years before the government of Somalia and its international partners forced Al-Shabaab out of this town in 2022. So analysts are saying that the government cannot allow Al-Shabaab to take this town again, because it is recapture, or it is the presence of Al-Shabaab in this town will also threaten the security of the capital, Mogadishu, which has been very, very stable and peaceful for the past 2 years. So we are expecting the government to put more pressure on Al-Shabaab with the help from its international partners, including Turkey and also United States, who have been launching drone strikes against Al-Shabaab in the past months since these operations have been started.
Well, Al-Shabaab doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon based on this recent offensive. How worrying is Al-Shabaab's recent offensive from your perspective? How do you see it?
Well, Al-Shabaab is fighting hard to retake several key strategic towns, mainly in the Middle Shabelle region, which was retaken by the Somali government during the past 2 years of military offensive declared by President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud. These towns include the Aden Jabal, which they already recaptured, and they're doing this because there is a kind of a cutoff from the reinforcement by the militants movement towards the Galgaduud region, where they are also facing a lot of pressure from the local forces, from local clan forces, and also the military. So they're trying to put more pressure on the governments to try and stop reinforcement of the Somali forces towards that region. To add on that, this morning the group also attacked government forces in Baidoa, which is in southwest state of Somalia. So they have been repelled, but Al-Shabaab seems to be employing more strategic tactics to fight back the Somali government.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Mohammed Kahie and Mogadishu, thanks for that. Now, as the conflict in Sudan enters its third year, many long displaced people are returning to areas in central Sudan where the security situation has improved. The International Organization for Migration reported that nearly 400,000 Sudanese have returned to their hometowns between late December and March this year. However, many have found their homes reduced to rubble. Public infrastructure has also been severely damaged, posing challenges such as water and electricity shortages. This, along with collapsed drainage and waste management systems, poses increased risk of infectious disease outbreaks. The Red Sea, home to the highest concentration of internally displaced people, last month launched a program in collaboration with NGOs to facilitate voluntary returns.
I was forced to flee my hometown 7 or 8 months ago. The experience was full of hardship and sorrow. The return program helped reunite me with my family, and I hope to restart my life smoothly.
Many hospitals and government offices are not operational, and a large number of residential buildings have been destroyed.
Domestic, regional, and international efforts to secure even a temporary peace in Sudan continue to meet headwinds. CGTN's Wilkerson Yaba has been looking at the problems mediators are facing.
2 years after conflict broke out in Sudan, various efforts to bring the two warring sides to commit to a lasting political solution are yet to bear fruit. On 11th May 2023, representatives of the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces signed a declaration to protect civilians across Sudan. The US and Saudi Arabia-led talks in Jeddah were aimed at ensuring the safe passage of humanitarian aid in conflict-hit Sudan, while also addressing arrangements for talks aimed at getting the rival sides to agree to a permanent cessation of hostilities. And while they succeeded at securing short-term ceasefire agreements, the talks were suspended in December 2023. Mediation by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development began in June 2023 with the support of the African Union. The committee aimed to facilitate a meeting between the commander of the Sudanese army and the head of the Rapid Support Forces, arrange for a safe humanitarian corridor, and commence a comprehensive political process. However, this ended without any tangible results. In mid-August last year, the United States opened talks in Geneva, Switzerland. While an RSF delegation showed up, the Sudanese armed forces did not attend. This made it difficult to make progress. Questions abound as to why these often overlapping efforts are yet to make a real breakthrough towards ending the conflict in Sudan. Some experts say the numerous mediating platforms may have led to a loss of coordination and influence. They, however, say there's still an opportunity to lay the groundwork for lasting peace, restoring stability and normal everyday life for millions of Sudanese citizens. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN.
Let's head to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is facing one of the world's largest humanitarian crises as the conflict in its east continues. Following the destruction and dismantling of displacement sites, over 1 million people are now living in extremely precarious conditions, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. CGTN's Crystal Onkeo reports.
Back in February, at least 90 IDP sites in eastern DRC were destroyed amid rebel hostilities. That's according to the World Health Organization. Ultimatums forced IDPs to leave the sites without security assessments or guarantees of basic services. Many of the displaced people sheltering in this school-turned shelter in Sake, North Kivu province, have been displaced more than once.
After the city was taken over by the M23 movement, we were asked to leave the site and return to where we had come from. We were happy because we missed our village. When we arrived in Karenga, our village, we were again ordered to leave within 24 hours without any explanation. We didn't know what to do or where to go, and that's how we got here. And the inhabitants did us this favor of sheltering us in this school.
Reports by the International Rescue Committee says that over 7 million people are displaced across the DRC. That includes 2.8 million in North Kivu province, where much of the fighting between M23 rebels and government forces has been concentrated. Humanitarian agencies are doing their best to provide life-saving aid.
Without this assistance, my family and I will have perished by starvation. But this will not happen anymore.
But even as aid continues to reach these communities, funding cuts limit the extent of the support.
The suspension of humanitarian aid is having an enormous impact on our response activities. It is mostly going to affect the communities who need it the most. It is a very worrying situation.
Towards the end of March, the UN raised an alarm that 27.7 million people are facing acute hunger. The situation is worse in eastern provinces where M23 and other armed groups are active. The UN World Food Programme says it needs about $400 million to reach 6.4 million people in the DRC with food assistance and invest in long-term solutions. Crystal Onkeo, CGTN.
Meanwhile, humanitarian agencies in Uganda are calling for urgent assistance from the international community to help support nearly 2 million refugees. Many of them are Congolese who have fled the escalating violence in the eastern DRC. The situation has deteriorated so badly, agencies have been forced to scale back on some essential services, as well Nikiria reports.
This is Zanon's retail store in the Nakivale refugee settlement in western Uganda. It's been a source of income for several Congolese refugees over the years. Zanon was a trader in the DRC before he moved to Uganda in 2005. Unable to meet his family's needs, despite rations from the World Food Programme, Zanon started selling groceries before moving into building supplies.
I had no job, but I started small with a grocery stall. Then I went on to ride a boda. I even drove a taxi, and after that, I started this hardware shop.
Zanon teams up with big traders and earns a profit from each item he sells. Now he's changing the lives of other Congolese refugees by employing them in his store.
I always tell them, you have to work. That's the honest truth. You can't just sit there for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months waiting for help from UNHCR. It's hard. It's good they help us, but I always advise them to work.
Thousands more refugees fleeing violence in the DRC are huddled in settlements across the country, and their only hope for food comes from humanitarian agencies. The settlements are crowded, and getting essential services like water and healthcare is a struggle. Since January, more than 41,000 refugees have crossed into Uganda, and the number is expected to climb. It's putting pressure on Uganda's infrastructure and national resources.
So we have done something called a prioritization exercise, which basically targets those refugees that are most vulnerable. So we make sure that the humanitarian funding we receive is assisting those who need it the most. Of course, we do not have sufficient resources.
The UN World Food Programme says it needs at least $120 million annually to provide food assistance to refugees in Uganda. To meet their immediate needs, the WFP is now investing in livelihood projects.
We are providing cash transfers to pregnant and breastfeeding women for them to buy nutritious food in the local markets. We are helping them to set up vegetable gardens so they can also grow their own food. And we are helping them, get into village saving and loans so they can also save their own money and invest in their future.
Zanon helps other refugees by teaching them business skills, but more than 500 people are fleeing the DRC for Uganda every day. More money is needed to help the new arrivals survive on their own. But the UN admits the funding crunch is affecting the humanitarian response. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
A UN envoy has called on the Security Council to work harder to prevent South Sudan plunging into conflict once again. It comes as political tensions continue to threaten a fragile peace deal between the country's two ruling factions. The 2018 pact between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar ended a 5-year civil war in the country that killed over 40,000 people. In an ominous report, the envoy also said the sides were now recruiting children into their ranks. CGTN Sophia Shimero reports.
The United Nations has warned that South Sudan is on the brink of renewed conflict as violence between rival factions in the country escalates. The factions, led by Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, had come together to end a brutal civil war in 2018 and agreed to a power-sharing deal. In that deal, Kiir became president and Machar first vice president. However, forces allied to them turned on each other earlier this year in Upper Nile State, plunging the country into a political crisis. The UN says the crisis threatens to undo all the work that has been done since then and compromise planned elections for 2026. A special representative added that even children were now involved.
There has been a sharp deterioration in the political and security situation, which threatens to unravel the peace gains made in recent years. We are receiving reports of further mobilization, respectively, of the White Army and the SSPDF in Upper Nile, allegedly including the forced recruitment of children into the respective ranks of the armed formations.
Meanwhile, the UN says the escalation of violence is also worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis as relief efforts have been limited by the attacks. 9.3 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, according to the UN Humanitarian Office.
6 health facilities have been forced to shut down to attacks and destruction. In addition to the civilian casualties, the violence has claimed the lives of 4 humanitarian workers, bringing the total this year to 5. Humanitarian access remains severely restricted to reach those in need, and critical medical supplies are rapidly running out amid an ongoing cholera outbreak.
UN envoys have called for urgent action to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, as has happened in neighboring Sudan, and to ensure implementation of the revitalized peace agreement.
We are calling for peace from every corner of our nation.
We are urging, citizens are urging their leaders to uphold and protect the gains made since the signing of the peace agreement.
The escalation comes as South Sudan struggles to hold its first ever elections since independence in 2011. The power-sharing agreement is only in place until these elections happen. They have already been delayed several times, the most recent in December. Sophia Shimechero, CGTN.
Time now for a short break. We shall reset and return with our business segment. Here are the headlines. Coming up in business, DRC President Tshisekedi calls on African trade ministers to deepen partnerships amid U.S. tariffs on imports. Welcome into our business segment. A land dispute between a British-owned tea plantation and a local community in western Kenya has come to a head. On the Sitoi Tea Estate in Nandi County, more than 100 residents are occupying 350 acres of land, picking tea and grazing their cattle. They say the land was gifted to them in 1986 by Eastern Produce of Kenya, EPK, which is majority owned by London-listed Camellia PLC, says the gift was for 202 acres, not the 550 acres that the local Kimasa's Farmers Cooperative claims. Kimasa's chairman, Daniel Biwat, said his grandfather lived on the land before it was seized by British colonialists around 1905, and that reclaiming the disputed 350 acres would right a historical wrong. The standoff could be a sign of turbulent times ahead for tea producers facing a growing backlash over colonial-era injustices. It follows several violent incidents at estates in Kenya, the world's fourth leading tea producer. Now, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has called on African countries to deepen their trade partnerships in order to boost the continent's position in the global market. Felix Tshisekedi, his call comes in the wake of a 10% tariff imposed by the United States on imports from several African countries. The Congolese leader made the remarks at the 16th meeting of the African Continental Free Trade Area Council of Ministers in Kinshasa. CGTN's Chris Oshamaringa has more.
Trade ministers from across the African continent have agreed to build a more integrated market for the prosperity of their people. They are seeking to fast-track the creation of a single market for goods and services and the movement of people by improving their policies and infrastructure.
Le port anneau profonde de banana.
There is the banana seaport that was launched by our president, as well as the Lobito corridor and other internal corridors. All that is being done to enable the DRC to trade effectively with the world.
Their renewed push for deepening trade in the region follows a recent announcement by the U.S. of a 10% tariff on African imports.
We presented projections to the ministers of what the impact of the measures of the United States will be on African countries in general and AGOA participating countries in particular. The ministers of trade also noted with concern that there is a weaponization of trade policy, that there are unilateral measures that are being undertaken which are actually inconsistent with WTO obligations.
The UN's trade agency, UNCTAD, urged the U.S. to exempt the world's poorest countries from the tariffs to avoid causing serious economic harm. But the U.S. has maintained the 10% tariffs and only halted the higher tariffs it imposed on other countries for 90 days. Many African exporters have been benefiting from a U.S. trade policy known as the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which provided them duty-free access to U.S. markets. The DRC president, Felix Tshisekedi, is now calling for enhanced trade collaboration under the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is a unique platform that will expand our frontiers and unlock the economic potential of our continent. Together we can build regional value chains and transform our raw materials locally and provide employment opportunities for our people.
The meeting in Kinshasa also discussed the removal of trade barriers in African countries.
The African ministers promoting increased trade in the continent still have a lot of work to do to harmonize tariffs, customs procedures, and set in place the infrastructure needed to accelerate Africa's economic growth and development. But they believe they have to start now to achieve their future goals. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
In Côte d'Ivoire, cocoa producers are calling on the government to look for other markets as the likely impact of a massive 21% tariff by the Trump administration in 3 months becomes more apparent. The West African country is a major exporter of cocoa beans to the United States, but many producers believe even the 10% baseline tax could push them over the edge. Caroline B. reports.
Much of the population in Gatakro, a town in central Côte d'Ivoire, survives by cultivating cocoa, a product crucial in the production of chocolate bars. However, they are not happy. One of their major customers, America, has raised the tariff on Ivorian products, including cocoa. This will make it much harder to sell their produce, and that in turn demotivates them to work hard.
When we make money, we have the courage to be able to work well and have enough cocoa to export. But if we are not happy, how can we give ourselves to this work? We can't, because we are suffering. I hire people to come and help me day and night, to clean and to grind, and I pay for all that, yet the price isn't good.
The trade tensions add to what was an already difficult market, where adverse weather and plant diseases have hurt harvests in recent years. The government has helped them marginally, raising the farm gate price of cocoa this year in anticipation of a smaller harvest. But farmers say they are still losing out.
My harvest last year, what I had between November and December, in November I had 3 bags. In December I had 3.5 bags. But this year isn't the case. I got 2.5 bags.
Côte d'Ivoire is the world's largest cocoa producer, and according to the Coffee and Cocoa Council, the country exports up to 300 tons of cocoa beans to the U.S. each year. While the proposed 21% tariff has been temporarily paused for 90 days, even the 10% baseline tax is a major problem. Farmers and cocoa trade unions remain wary that the product will be more expensive for consumers and they simply won't want to buy it.
The problem we are facing today is that this stockroom is full. Donald Trump's customs tax is causing us problems. Because of this, people can't buy our products. We are already facing the effects, so if there is a solution to this problem, we will be happy.
Experts say cocoa farmers are in a risky financial situation, and the tariffs on Ivorian products, which also includes rubber and cashew nuts, would make an already difficult situation worse. They say the tariffs, in the long run, may result in cheap cocoa and unfair prices, further worsening the situation for farmers.
If the U.S. imposed a 21% tax, exporters will not be able to export to the U.S. And as a result, there will be a problem with increased supply in Côte d'Ivoire. As a result of this, our European customers will be forced to buy following the effect of supply and demand. And they will certainly buy cheaper because when there is too much supply, the customer is king.
The Ivorian government says America makes up about 4% of its overall trade and has asked Washington to reconsider the tariffs. According to a government spokesperson, the country is already exploring new markets for its cocoa beans and is seeking stronger trade ties with Europe to compensate for the anticipated losses. Caroline B., CGTN.
Lesotho has granted a license to tech billionaire Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service. The decision came just hours after denying it was fast-tracking the process as part of U.S. tariff concessions. The small African kingdom was hit this month with tariffs of 50% on goods exported to the United States, the highest for any single nation on President Donald Trump's now paused reciprocal tariffs list. The levies were reduced last week to 10% for a 90-day reprieve. The Lesotho Communications Authority said Starlink, owned by Trump's close advisor Musk, made its application in April 2024 and would be issued with a license valid for 10 years.
The government of Lesotho is aware of and greatly concerned about the baseless allegations made by a media agency called Mother Jones, along with other local and international media outlets concerning tariff negotiations between the government of Lesotho and the United States of America. It was only this past week when the U.S. government asked the government of Lesotho to send a document detailing all the areas they wish to base negotiations on. It is surprising that this news outlet claims that the government has made commitments on the issues that they have raised. The government of Lesotho is still in the process of preparing this document, which will detail areas of possible negotiation.
And we're not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Let's take a peek at the headlines. Coming up in sports, Gabonese striker Aaron Bupenza dies after falling from a building in China.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa. So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live with me, Richard Nta. Let's talk a bit of football. Gabon forward Aaron Bupenza has died after falling from a building in China. And that's according to a statement from the Gabonese Football Federation. Bupenza played for Chinese side Zhejiang, who he joined from Rapid Bucharest earlier this year. The 28-year-old made 25 appearances for his country and scored 8 goals, including one at the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. His club career included spells at Al Arabi in Qatar, Al Shabab in Saudi Arabia, and in Major League Soccer with FC Cincinnati. And in Sudan, Al Hilal, one of the country's most successful football clubs, bowed out of the CAF Champions League last week at the quarterfinal stage. The team got that far without having the benefit of home support, or at least the kind they'd get in their hometown due to the ongoing conflict in the country. For many fans of football in Sudan, it was a chance lost to showcase the sport's popularity and profile in the North African country.
In fact, there is no doubt that the sports nation is based on the pillar of youth, and youth are the League of Nations. At the same time, we know that the war has stopped sports activities in all of Sudan, and we in the Sudanese Football Association were among the first to initiate stopping sports activities since April 15, due to the lack of possibility on the one hand, and the other side in support and assistance to the Sudanese army and its patriotic battle.
Of course, watching matches in the stadium has a different feel, and it's completely different from watching on TV. In the stadium, you support with all your senses and emotions, and you are filled with passion with the fans and the ultras. You also give motivation to the players. Not that we are watching on TV. My favorite team's players won't hear my voice or see me. It's clear to me that the players hear our voices and miss us as fans, just as we miss them as well.
Well, we will begin with last night's action from the UEFA Champions League. Let's talk about that. And Arsenal got the job done against reigning champions Real Madrid to set up a semi-finals tie against Paris Saint-Germain of France. The Gunners came into the match with a comfortable 3-goal cushion from last week's first leg in London, and the result was never really in doubt as Real struggled throughout. Indeed, it could have been much easier for Arsenal had Bukayo Saka scored from an early penalty, but his weak effort instead pumped up the home crowd. However, the Madrid players weren't able to benefit from the Bernabeu's energy, and Saka made amends for the miss midway through the second half to effectively end the tie. Real did manage to pull one back almost straight away, but that was as good as it got. Gabriel Martinelli scored late to help Arsenal to a 2-1 win on the night and 5-1 on an aggregate. Let's hear from the managers.
Probably not, not only because we are in the semi-final for the third time in our history, but as well for the manner and the way we did it, not only by the way we played, but as well with the circumstances and the amount of injuries that we have. So I think overall, I think it shows the character of this team, of this club, and is a night to be very proud of.
Being out of the Champions League feels like disappointment, and it's quite normal to feel like this. This is the other side of football. There's the happy side, which we've been experienced many times, and there's the sad part, which is today. And we need to handle it as well, just like we've handled the happy side so many times, the victories and the titles. Now we need to handle the sadness of being out of the Champions League. How are we going to do it? Focusing on the other three competitions.
Inter Milan will play Barcelona in the other semi-finals after the Serie A leaders survived a couple of scares against Bayern Munich to book their passage. Inter had a 1-goal advantage from the first leg, but that was wiped out early in the second half by a low Harry Kane strike. However, the goals seemed to spark the home side into life, and 2 quick strikes from first Lautaro Martinez and then Benjamin Pavard seemed to put the tie to bed. But it didn't, because an Eric Dyer header set up a thrilling final quarter hour as Bayern gambled everything on taking the game to extra time. It wasn't to be, though. 2-2 is how it ended on the night, and 4-3 on aggregate to Inter.
It's mixed feelings, because the hard reality is that that we're not going to play the Champions League final at home. That's the hard reality. We cannot change this. We can't say anything more than that. And then the other side of it is always the performance side, where we know we did enough to win these 2 games as well. So that's of course a fact. But then as well, to finish on this, you also look forward in 5 months is the next game at home in the Champions League. And many more games in Munich in the Champions League in 5 months. In 2 months' time is the first game of the Club World Cup, another trophy, and in 1 month time we'll try to do everything we can to win the Bundesliga. That's a main goal. So, but there's a lot to look forward to as well. Of course, it's hard today.
There are evenings we will remember. We had 2 great matches along with our supporters. This was a wonderful evening that pays off all those days we have been working hard to prepare for these tough matches against the great, valuable opponents. I am lucky enough to have great men in my squad. You could not play such intense matches like we did tonight and in Munich without that.
Now a look ahead to tonight's Europe League quarterfinals, and Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim says his under-fire Cameroonian goalkeeper Andre Onana will start against Lyon, despite being at fault for the French club's 2 goals in the first leg last week. The 29-year-old was subsequently left out of the United squad for their weekend Premier League fixture against Newcastle. However, that was a game in which his understudy Altay Ben-Yedder didn't cover himself in glory, and Onana has been called back. Lyon scored late last week to secure a 2-2 draw, but should face a raucous home crowd at Old Trafford tonight. United sit 14th in the Premier League table, but a Europa League trophy would provide a backdoor passage into next season's Champions League.
We know Manchester United is very strong. They're a big club. It's true that in the Premier League, they are not what they were. But still, they've put in some good performances. They've played well. They have a lot of individual skills, and we have to remain aware that we are playing against the best Manchester United there is. Having said that, playing at Old Trafford is a home advantage for Manchester United, but it's also a privilege for us to arrive here and play in a great atmosphere. We need to see this great occasion as a big opportunity, and I think we are privileged to be able to play this match.
Onana is ready. He had one weekend that I felt that was better for him to not play, and a good thing for Altai to play. And he's going to be really good tomorrow, I'm sure of that. But if it's the other way, people will say that it was a bad decision. So we never know. I'm trying to be clear on things and try to make the evaluation be really simple, not overthinking. And when I imagine the game, and I see Andre Onana, he had one weekend that he rest, now he's ready to return to the competition, and I chose Andre to start this game.
In Thursday's other Europa League fixtures, Frankfurt welcomed Tottenham to Germany. The sides drew their first leg 1-1. Italian giants Lazio will kick off in Rome 2 goals down against surprise package Boda Glimt of Norway. And Athletic Bilbao and Rangers had a scoreless draw in their first leg in Glasgow. And a bit of news from the world of tennis. Iga Swiatek has stormed into the quarterfinals of the Stuttgart Open as the world number 2 continues her dominance on clay. Her opponent, Jana Fett, a qualifier from Croatia, had no answers to the Pole's power and pace as she fell 6-2, 6-2. This is undoubtedly Swiatek's favorite time of the year as she racks up win after win on the dirt. However, she did suffer a rare defeat at this event last year, losing in the semifinals to Elena Rybakina. Next month, the 23-year-old will be aiming for her 5th French Open title at Roland Garros. Now let's turn to the NBA, where 8 teams across the 2 conferences are scrambling for the last 4 places in the postseason in what's called a play-in tournament. Last night, the Dallas Mavericks put themselves in the frame to advance with a 14-point win over the Sacramento Kings, and it was a night of redemption of sorts for the Mavericks. Klay Thompson, who had a nightmare performance on the same day last year against the same opposition, albeit when he played for the Golden State Warriors. Thompson bagged 4 trebles in a dominant third quarter for Dallas as last year's NBA finalists ran out to a 120-106 winner. And Anthony Davis chipped in with 27 points. The Mavs aren't quite in the playoffs yet. However, they'll have to beat the Memphis Grizzlies to earn the 8th seed spot. Dallas coach Jason Kidd said he enjoyed Davis's performance. Well, that is it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. For the team, I'm Richard Nta saying thank you so much for watching, and we'll have more Africa Live coming your way in 6 hours' time. So stay tuned and stay here on CGTN.
Live from CGTN Beijing, this is Asia Today.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Li Qiuyuan in Beijing. It's 7 p.m. here in the Chinese capital. Coming up on Asia Today. Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Cambodia for a state visit, meeting with King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen. Israel says its troops will remain in the buffer zones it has created in Gaza, even after any settlement to end the conflict.
In fact, turnaround, contraction.
Plus, the World Trade Organization slashes its trade forecast for the rest of 2025.
Is of big concern.
Our top story, Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodia's King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen. Xi began his Cambodia state visit today and was greeted at the airport by the nation's senior leaders. In a written statement released upon his arrival in Phnom Penh, President Xi said that the ties were forged and nurtured by the older generation of leaders of the two countries. He said China and Cambodia support each other in maintaining national stability and promoting development and prosperity. President Xi said both countries unite and collaborate to defend international fairness and justice. He also said China and Cambodia have made contributions to promoting the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. For the very latest on this, we're now joined by my colleague Tom Bo, who is live for us in Phnom Penh. Great to see you there, Tom Bo. What do you have for us on President Xi Jinping's visit to Cambodia? Fill us in.
Hello, Qiuyuan. Well, this is President Xi Jinping's second visit to the country in 9 years. And this afternoon, he has already met with the Cambodia King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen and Prime Minister Hun Manet this afternoon, according to the local media. And also, upon arriving in Phnom Penh at noon, President Xi Jinping expressed his eagerness to, in a written statement, to strengthen friendship and enhance cooperation with Cambodia. President Xi Jinping said in a statement that China takes Cambodia as a priority in neighborhood diplomacy and firmly supports Cambodia's upholding strategic independence and following a development path which is suitable to the country's own conditions. And he expected that both sides would strengthen the China-Cambodia Diamond Hexagon cooperation framework, enhancing political trust, promoting high-quality cooperation, and increasing security. And this would lead to more exchanges between the people from the two countries, benefiting both nations and contributing to peace and stability in the region and beyond. And that's actually echoed with a Central Conference on China's neighborhood diplomacy, which noted that the relationships between China and its neighboring countries is right now in the best period in modern times. And also the relationships has entered the stage of interconnections between the regional situation and the evolving global landscape. And according to the latest news that the President Xi Jinping met with King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen this afternoon, and according to the local media, he's expected to meet with Prime Minister Hun Manet this afternoon. Qiuyuan.
And tell me, what's the mood there in Phnom Penh? What are people saying about it?
Yeah, it was very impressive to see that more than 20,000 local people, along with representatives from the overseas Chinese enterprises and students, that they line up the streets to welcome President Xi Jinping. And we talked to some of them. They told us that they have been very looking forward to the state visit, saying that they're hoping that the state visit would improve the mutual trust and, of course, enhance the economic cooperation, which means more job opportunities. Experts say that the state visit this time reaffirms the ironclad friendships between the two countries, and also that the state visit this time is expected to reach new agreements covering the area of trade, investment, infrastructure, agriculture, and people-to-people exchanges. Last year, the trade volume between the two countries increased by 13%, reaching over $15 billion. So experts believe that this time the two countries are going to sign more agreements promoting the bilateral economic cooperation. And also experts believe that Cambodia needs more investment and support from China so as to, try to diversify from its garment manufacturing to more high value-added sectors such as automotive parts, electronics, and of course, agro-processing. Choyuan.
Tumbo, thank you so much for the latest there. My colleague Tumbo there for us in Phnom Penh. Appreciate it. To dig a little deeper into this, let me bring in our studio guests, Ms. Han Hua, co-founder and Secretary General of Beijing Club for International Dialogue, and Professor Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Great to have both of you with us. Let me start with Professor Liu this time. So President Xi says good neighborly ties are the foundation of the China-Cambodia community with a shared future. Talk to us the significance of the president's trip. How can it advance the bilateral ties further?
Now, the world is experiencing another round of turbulence in the globalization process, and when WTO is now still in a sort of impasse, regional integration has been on the top agenda, given the need to further exchange and further deepen cooperation between countries. So neighbors now, they need to huddle together to be able to weather the headwinds that is produced from externals. And now the infrastructure development is the key because World Bank estimates that the infrastructure investment requires at least $8 trillion for connectivity, and China is now doing a stellar job in that best regard. And now with more of the financial facilities like the AIB, like the BRICS Bank, they are there to provide the inclusive financing to support the infrastructure development and also for green transition. And now given more of the demand from the business community, from the consumer side, so the top leaders understand that setting aside any type of ideological stereotype, do the economy, bring the growth, go for industrialization and build more job opportunities for particularly the younger generation. And this is the way that we need to go. And now Cambodia and many other neighboring countries realize by working with China, they gain the right type of respect because China never interfere in their domestic autonomy. And the Chinese experience can be borrowed through the open door and reform process to get more fitted to their own domestic institutional structure. And now in terms of the pressure over the tariff war, etc., there is a high time that they need to find a common gesture and a common understanding and possibly collective action as how they can work more closely and defend the external shock waves.
The president also says he hopes that this visit will spearhead progress in building a China-Cambodia community with a shared future. So Ms. Han, let me bring you into this. Tell me more about this vision and how can China further contribute to this initiative?
Yeah, you know that state visit is always regarded as the highest level diplomacy. So in the past, this is President Xi's second visit in 9 years. So in the past, we saw a lot of government-to-government exchanges in many big projects and in many mutual understanding on many international issues that the two countries have already been aligning together. And this time we saw more on the ground or down-to-earth projects, like more investments are needed and expected, more practices are being shared and to be shared in the future. And more people, you can see the welcoming crowds on the streets. So we can see a lot of people-to-people ties to establish, build onto this already very solid foundation. And in this turbulent world and in this facing the more global challenges, I think that these two countries shows that they are working together to face these challenges, to tackle these challenges using the joint efforts and to collaborate and joint their resources together. So this is of significant importance. And also facing this ASEAN, because there is always this ASEAN centrality. So China shows the respect to ASEAN centrality, but at the meantime, Cambodia shows its respect to China's core interests and the core national interests and the core priorities. I think these has aligned together a new framework of this shared future, meaning that we are evolving together and we want to develop together on many critical issues, and we respect each party's sphere of national interests, but we also need to joint efforts together to face this turbulent world.
Ms. Han and Professor Liu, please stay with me. We have more to talk about. Let me come back to you guys in just a short while. But before that, let's bring in Lee Pei Mei, an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Madani Studies at International Islamic University at Selangor, Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. Now, talk to us more about how do infrastructure projects like Siem Reap Angkor International Airport contribute to Cambodia's economic growth and regional connectivity?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I think this is a very good example that you raised about how Chinese investment actually helps to boost the local economy. I think for Cambodia, tourism is one of the main pillars of the economy. So their original old airport was actually too small to handle large passengers. And the new airport has a very strategic locations near the Angkor Wat complex. So this Angkor Wat complex is the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is a huge attraction. And over the years, it has attracted a lot of tourists visiting this place. And in the first years of its operation, we've seen more than 1 million passengers arriving to this airport. And it's said that the airport can actually handle up to 7 million passengers per year. And of course, this Siem Reap Angkor International Airport, it allows more Southeast Asian tourists and also other international tourists to visit Cambodia, and which is a huge boost to Cambodian tourism. And so when tourists visited Cambodia, they basically spend on food, hotel, logistics, and also other services. So again, I think this international airport will definitely benefit the residents and also the businesses nearby, and also making Cambodia more connected to the outside world.
And Professor, Cambodian leaders have also said China's support is crucial to the country's socio-economic development and fight against poverty. How would you evaluate the impact of China's contributions?
I think to fight against the poverty is the goal of every country in the world. And actually, I would say Cambodia has made a good progress, but there are more to be done, because as of 2022, their poverty rate is still at 16.6%. So there's still a huge gap for Cambodia to actually close. But I would say like China's investment in Cambodia has helped to create a lot of jobs for the people. And if, for example, we have seen some of the projects like this, like the special economic zone, which has actually helped to boost manufacturing of the Cambodia. They are very important, and Chinese investments actually spans into many areas like agriculture, power, tourism, and manufacturing, like what I said. Not only that, I think China and Cambodia, they have this free trade agreement with basically more than 96% of these goods in Cambodia will be exempted tariff. And this actually helps Cambodia in the sense that Cambodia can export more agricultural products like mangoes, bananas, cashews to China. And this indeed will help to improve the livelihood of the farmers. And I would like to say, like the recently initiative, which is the fish rice corridor, I think this is a good initiative, and this a practical initiative, because it's helping Cambodia to improve its agriculture sector and also improve the efficiency of its farming.
Professor, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your insights with us. Professor Li Pei Mei, live us there. We really appreciate your time. China and Malaysia have issued a joint statement to build a high-level strategic community with a shared future. The document reviews the progress made in bilateral ties and the profound friendship between the two peoples. China and Malaysia have agreed to enhance strategic coordination, fostering high-level exchanges and deeper political mutual trust. The two countries seek to energize or synergize their development plans, especially in sectors such as supply chain, investment, e-commerce, and new energy. And on people-to-people exchanges, the two countries stress Confucian, Islamic civilization dialogue, tourism, and education. China and Malaysia have also pledged joint efforts in safeguarding peace and stability in the South China Sea. They will engage in closer cooperation under regional frameworks such as ASEAN, APEC, and RCEP. The joint statement also highlights coordination under multilateral frameworks such as the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the World Health Organization. I want to bring back our studio guests, Ms. Han Hua and Professor Liu Baocheng here. So let's talk about this trip to Malaysia by the Chinese president. We've noticed that in their joint statement, both countries emphasized their shared identity as key developing nations in the Asia-Pacific and the Global South. How would you interpret this call for building a high quality and strategic community with a shared future? What kind of broader significance does it hold for regional development and South-South cooperation?
Now, there is an imperative need to strengthen the regional integration where countries can really share about their comparative advantage in that each other's the economic efficiency can be fully unleashed, and also a root-building process is utterly important, and the neighbors can really work on friendship. But in order to build better predictability and also to invite more of the third participants, we need a rule-based structure. Now that WTO is now almost staying in a corridor of impasse, so RCEP was born. And also China is eagerly seeking for membership within CPTPP, where ASEAN countries are playing the central role. And of course, Malaysia is also a leading member within it. And now with now the global turbulent, the trading framework that is under further destruction by the United States, it is more important for us to deepen our cooperation and upgrade such sort of structure. And China is also now talking to deepen the cooperation in terms of the upgrading the joint investment protection treaties and double taxation avoidance treaties, and many more of the insurance, subrogation, etc. But on top of all this, it's really there how we can really supply our joint supply chain through the joint research and innovation, and share our expertise, experiences in the digital transformation, and also a joint solution to address the climate change issues.
We've also noticed that China and Malaysia signed this visa exemption agreement for ordinary passport holders. How big of a deal is this for people-to-people exchanges between the two sides?
Well, this deal or this arrangement is announced by the two leaders. This shows the significance of this arrangement, and it is certainly an integral part of the whole announcement and of the whole trip. So it will definitely enhance the people-to exchange by visiting each other's countries, and to have more dialogues and act together on so many more business projects together and benefit together. So I think these parts, this integral part of the whole announcement, sending a very clear message to the world, not only to ASEAN countries, to China itself, but also to the world, that in the turbulent world, we are going to be more a stabilizer to this world order, and we are the beneficiary of the current international order. So we need to maintain its sustainability using our both efforts, and we have the shared experiences, and we want to share it to the world as well. And we have the roadmap, we have the vision, we have the roadmap. Now it has already added more steps into this roadmap, so people can just follow that. People-to-people exchange exchange, this civilizational dialogue, this digital economic cooperation, this BRI, or Belt and Road Initiative connectivity, to its Madani project. All these steps can be combined together to show us how good an example China and Malaysia will set to the world.
I think in summary, the trips in these three countries give a best showcase that China is there to build bridges where other countries are building the walls.
Well said. Thank you very much, Professor Liu and Ms. Han. Always a pleasure to talk to both of you guys. Thank you. You're now watching Asia Today. Let's now take a short break here on the program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Shared aspirations, mutual respect,
and regional stability.
China and its neighbors live in amity.
Inheritance, innovation, and integration.
Asian values cherish inclusive development.
We travel through Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia.
A journey that celebrates our bonds with decades of diplomatic ties and centuries of friendly exchanges.
Following CGTN's coverage of the high-level exchanges
between China and Southeast Asian countries.
Exploring the common values leading to modernization.
Welcome back. Israel says its troops will remain in the buffer zones they have created in Gaza, even after any settlement to end the conflict. Defense Minister Israel Katz says the IDF will not evacuate areas that have been cleared and seized. The Israeli military says it now controls 30% of Gaza as buffer zones. Katz also announced that Israel would continue preventing aid from entering Gaza. Israel has halted the entry of aid since March 2nd, worsening the humanitarian crisis in the besieged territory of 2.4 million people. Meantime, Katz repeated Israel's demand for Hamas to disarm. Hamas has repeatedly called this a red line it will not cross and says Israel must withdraw from Gaza under any permanent ceasefire. And a total of 5,671 refugees from Afghanistan returned to their homeland from Iran and Pakistan on Wednesday. Afghanistan's High Commission for Addressing Returnees Problems said in a statement today that the refugees were repatriated via the Turkmen border crossing in Garhar province, Spin Boldak in Kandahar province, and Islam Kala in Herat province. About 7 million Afghan refugees, most of whom were undocumented migrants, are currently thought to be living abroad, with most living in Afghanistan's neighboring Pakistan and Iran. Now, the Afghan interim government has repeatedly called on Afghan refugees to return home to contribute to the building of their war-torn homeland. China says it will ignore the United States' recent tariff hikes, calling them a meaningless game. The Chinese Commerce Ministry made the remarks after the U.S. imposed 245% tariffs on certain products from China. The ministry says the U.S. has weaponized tariffs to an irrational level. China has vowed to take firm countermeasures and fight to the end if the U.S. persists in undermining China's interests. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has again said there is no winner in a tariff war or a trade war, and China does not want to fight, but it is not afraid to fight. Amid escalating trade tensions between China and the U.S., the World Trade Organization has cut its trade forecast for the rest of the year. It warns that tariffs and ongoing policy uncertainty will reverse trends in growth. And the world's biggest car industry members have gathered in Kazakhstan for Auto Chainik Astana. Many share their views on the challenges amid the current global uncertainty. CGTN's Agorem Kali has more.
The international exhibition of automotive parts, equipment and goods for car maintenance is taking place in Kazakhstan's capital Astana. The auto show is the crucial annual event in the Caspian region, and this year it's happened on the backdrop of the US raising tariffs against 185 countries. New measures have straightly affected the world automobile industry. This particularly concerns the European and Chinese car markets.
I believe that with this tariffs, there will be a lot of changes. If the tariffs comes in place, it will have an impact for the whole world. but I believe that the German car manufacturers are strong enough to do maybe the production in South Africa or in other countries.
More than 350 participant companies from 22 countries are presenting a wide range of products such as auto parts and components, automobile technologies and innovations, oils and chemicals. Imposed tariffs have beaten not only the automobile sales market, but also the chain of auto parts supply. For instance, Poland provides a significant volume of automotive components to Germany.
We have daily shipment to every country. Also, we have daily shipment to Australia, for example, to Africa, to Latin America. So we are really on the top and we increase a lot. But of course, now the market is changing.
A huge Chinese market was presented by 237 companies. Chinese pavilion represented opportunities for business development and innovation. Chinese electric vehicles are becoming increasingly popular in Central Asia. Local governments have created supporting measures such as lower prices, tax breaks, and the establishment of local production facilities. However, the tariffs to import them to the US market jumped to 125%.
Many Chinese shocked for this news. And even at this policy, some Americans, they always choose to buy from China because add to the tax, finally the price is lower than the local American market.
U.S. tariffs are meant to revive the American economy and industry, but experts say the measures will have a negative impact on car production and global supply chains, increase car prices, destroy businesses and cut jobs, unless countries find a mutually beneficial deal in the near future. Igor Kelly, CGTN, Astana, Kazakhstan.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. This comes after President Xi's meetings with King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen. President Xi began his Cambodia state visit today and was greeted at the airport by the nation's senior leaders. In a written statement released upon his arrival in Phnom Penh, President Xi said that the ties were forged and nurtured by the older generation of leaders of the two countries. He said China and Cambodia support each other in maintaining national stability and promoting development and prosperity. President Xi said both countries unite and collaborate to defend international fairness and justice. He also said China and Cambodia have made contributions to promoting the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. And that's going to do it for this edition of Asia Today. I'm Li Qiuyuan in Beijing. Thank you so much for watching. Coming up next is Dialogue. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to Dialogue. Chinese President Xi Jinping has just wrapped up his visit to Malaysia and kicked off his visit to Cambodia. While in Malaysia, more than 30 bilateral cooperation documents were signed, and President Xi stressed that China is ready to work with Malaysia to build a high-level strategic China-Malaysia community with a shared future so as to usher in a new golden 50 years for bilateral ties. What were the highlights of the Malaysian trip as Malaysia holds the rotating presidency of ASEAN this year? What new impetus can the visit provide for regional development and stability? And what can we expect from President Xi's visit to Cambodia? Join us for our discussion today, live from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Joining me today are Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, Peter Chang, Research Associate from the Malaysia-China Friendship Association, and John Pang, Senior Fellow from the Belt and Road Initiative Caucus for Asia-Pacific, and also former Malaysian government official, and Vanessa Chiang, Director of the China ASEAN Studies Center at Camtech University. Welcome to Dialogue. Peter, I will start with you. If you look at these, let's say, the adjectives about this trip to Malaysia, high-level strategic China-Malaysia community with a shared future, a new golden 50 years for bilateral ties, and also the numbers, more than 30 deals. So what do you make of President Xi's visit to Malaysia?
Chintuo, those are very high-sounding words, but I don't think they are just mere rhetorics. These are concrete aspirations. I think we have had very good 50 years past, and that formed the foundation of our anticipation of another golden 50 years. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, in his speech yesterday at the state dinner, says this: Malaysia values its consistency. Malaysia will remain an unwavering and principled friend of China, guided by the wisdom of history and the promises of the future. Those are lofty words, but they are lifted up by very concrete experience that we had between our two countries.
John, you're based in China, but of course you're from Malaysia. If you look at the development, the recent development, what's your take?
I agree. I think this is a real upgrade in the relationship between the two countries. This notion of a new 50-year golden era, of course, refers to the fact that we're at the 50th anniversary of the inauguration of diplomatic relations between the People's Republic of China and Malaysia. So I think this is substantial. Chinese political rhetoric is not sort of random and erratic. So we've seen in the agreements that are signed, in the warmth of the interaction, and in the words of the leadership, that we are indeed in a new era. Another word used to describe it is sort of an evergreen relationship. So I'm very optimistic about this, and this is coming at a time when we really do need this. Mm-hmm. There's never been a greater need for regional integration.
Mm-hmm. But Baocheng, it seems like the trip itself touches upon a wide range of issues. For example, the presidency also said that China stands ready to promote Confucian Islamic civilizational dialogue with Malaysia. It reminds me of the Chinese side, this global civilization, very much about being equal, with respect, dealing with each other. Do you see like a common ground between China and Malaysia here? And I think a lot of Asian countries, basically, people would agree, with mutual respect on equal footing. We can start dialogue with different cultures, despite the different culture, different civilizations here.
Yeah, in my most recent book, I define civilization as a departure from barbarism. So it's not only a matter of technological advancement, but it's a matter of institutional setting. It's understanding of inclusivity in coexistence based on respect and trust. So now this is further depicted by President Xi's trip to these three important nations. And the fact that over the last 50 years, with Chinese open door, with ASEAN, working more closely with the world and also maintaining its own autonomy, and Asia, Southeast Asia, with the plus China, turning out to be the most dynamic locomotive to shore up the global economy and also to bring prosperity for its own neighborhoods. And now it is also high time to strengthen the regional integration, given the global multilateral trading network is being threatened and even paralyzed by the United States. And now we are facing such a tough challenge. So therefore, to deepen our cooperation on a practical level, but also on a fundamental level of civilization is important. Practically, we continue to boost infrastructure development, build roads, ports, develop energy, and also get us more connected through telecommunication, and introducing more of the 5G and 6G. And then the financial cooperation is also top on the agenda. I think more importantly is really how we can really enable the younger generation to be able to participate and contribute with their own critical thinking and innovation capacity to boost the digital and also the green transformation.
Yeah, furthering, of course, the civilization here. Let's say have our Cambodian guest here, Van Rys. Here, President Xi also called for responding to the law of the jungle with Asian values of peace, cooperation, openness, and inclusiveness, and responding to the unstable and uncertain world with a stable and certain Asia. Share with us your understanding or interpretation of the remarks here.
I think President Xi's visit to three Southeast Asian nations this time marked a very significant milestones in China-Southeast Asian relations, especially to share this worldview and perspective on how we can peacefully coexist and co-develop the region together. So the Asian value, which back in the 1990s, quite controversial term, but this is a new era that we can work together to bring Asian wisdom and Asian perspective to shape evolving a new world order, which we hope to see it to be more inclusive, fair, and just. So I would categorize the President Xi visit to Southeast Asia this time based on several keywords: trust, mutual respect, mutual benefits, and also equality. Because China is a big nation, second largest world economy. So by having this kind of mutual respect and understanding and learning that caused by the U.S. When it comes to tariff war.
Well, John, you are nodding your head. Of course, in Asia-wide, the economic development, as Bolton has said, locomotive, most dynamic region. At the same time, it ensures peace and stability largely for decades, past several decades there. So, Asian values, culture here, or the common understanding to the nations.
Indeed. I think the matter goes well beyond even just values, which can be understood almost individualistically. I think the civilizational framework is valuable in actually in drawing on really deep historical kinship between the peoples of Southeast Asia and China. So it's a framework apart from the nation-state framework. Well, of course, we deal with one another as states, but there are other ways in which we are related to one another. And the civilizational framework, I think, is ample enough for us to draw on these. So the links go back, almost 2,000 years. So I think by doing that, we're able to see, to trace the lines of connection between us. So I think it's very valuable, especially at a time when you're talking about the end of a certain world order and in creating a new one. You have to draw on all these resources, not just one set of ideas. So I think it's about resisting merely Western framing of our relationship to one another. So these things are absolutely real, and a kind of civilizational dialogue would draw on these. It's not just about religion; it's about civilization and sort of the largest concept we have in this regard.
From those lofty, let's say, words and ideas to the real world, Peter, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim also stressed that ASEAN will not endorse. This is about, of course, the current the global trade war the U.S. imposes on the rest of the world. So Malaysia and ASEAN will not endorse any unilaterally imposed tariffs. And facing the rise of unilateralism, Malaysia is willing to strengthen cooperation with China to jointly address risks and challenges. Those are forceful statements into this world, I think probably we need more politicians standing up and speaking up to speak up about what's wrong and what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Prime Minister has come up as saying that, as chair of ASEAN, he would like to see ASEAN responding as a collective, that we will be able to coordinate our sort of regional response together. It remains to be seen how we're going to get it, but the aspiration is there. We know that the terrorist war right now is in a flux. We don't exactly know which way it would go right now. Things are changing all the time. Malaysia is taking a wait-and-see attitude, stepping back a little. That gives us some room to sort of frame our own sort of both national and then regional ASEAN-wide response to it. China will play a critical role in this, no doubt. One leap that we could take, what's ahead is what happened last month when China and Japan and South Korea, in anticipation of these tariffs, came together to form a sort of coordinated response to the impending tariffs. I think a similar thing should happen here in ASEAN, that China and ASEAN eventually, perhaps at next month's ASEAN summit, that we could have more concrete proposal working together, forming a coordinated response to it. One of the common themes that has come out of this tariffs is that ASEAN really needs to strengthen our intra-regional trade. And I feel that we could also take a lift of China through China's dual circulation strategy in response to the first terrorist war that the first Trump administration did. The ASEAN ourselves, we should have a similar kind of dual circulation strategy, that we will continue to engage extra regional partners, but at the same time, we got to strengthen our own domestic market, our domestic supply chain, and China could play a part. I think China would not just be an external partner, but also play a critical part in helping to strengthen our domestic market and also our supply chain.
I have another question, of course, related to that. That's from the U.S. side. It was reported, I think it's the Trump officials' idea, like the financial treasury, saying that, they would pressure the 70-plus countries with tariffs, of course, to sever their ties with China, their trade ties with China, so as to reduce tariffs. Will Trump be successful? I mean, if you look at the trade volume between China and Malaysia, for example, between China and Vietnam, this is massive. And of course, the relationship is strong, is close. Peter.
Well, they have been trying to force us to choose sides. At the ideological level, keep asking us to choose sides, and we keep telling them we're not going to choose sides. And now they're coming out at the economic level to ask us to choose sides again. They're beating a dead horse, I think. No, I don't think we were going to choose sides. We're going to trade with both. We're going to trade with both the US and China. And it is ASEAN's core principle, ASEAN centrality and ASEAN neutrality. We have always maintained open free market. We are open doors, engaging with any external partners who wants to work with us for the mutual benefit of both. and we will continue to maintain that. I think that threat to force us to take sides is going to probably fall on deaf ears. Of course, there will be short-term setback. We may have to take some short-term pain, but in the long term, that is where our well-being is, and that's where we should continue to stay. We will. I think ASEAN as a whole will continue to maintain the two core principle of neutrality and ASEAN centrality.
Well, when it comes to the concrete, deals or cooperation between China and ASEAN side and the Malaysian side, John, obviously the two countries signed MOUs in various fields, such of people say of strategic importance in terms of like AI, in terms of digital transformation, smart cities. I know you have been following the development there. Tell us more with that. How important is that to Malaysia, to the region?
So one particular agreement that I think is absolutely strategic is the proposal or the agreement for Zhejiang University in Hangzhou to work with the Malaysian digital ministry to support digital transformation, AI, smart cities. These are all areas in which Zhejiang and Hangzhou are world leaders. I mean, this is a recognition that the technology frontier in areas that matter to us is now in China. So the basic idea behind this is for Malaysia to find complementarity or work with, learn from the Zhejiang model of digital transformation and ecosystem development. I mean, it's a truly comprehensive approach, and Zhejiang province has adopted this to integrate digital technology across government, society, and business. And interestingly, this actually dates from Zhejiang Governor Xi Jinping's Digital Zhejiang project in 2004 when he was governor of the place. We see the fruits of this now, and all the world has heard of DeepSeek, right? And the six little dragons of Hangzhou and this is absolutely the case that now the technology frontier, the new Silicon Valley is out here, and Zhejiang University has a role akin to Stanford, right, in the old Silicon Valley. So this is where the action is, and Malaysia is making a partnership, right, to be there and to work with parties there. And this is not just about the ministry, it's not just about the university. This is between China and Malaysia, and between Malaysia and ASEAN eventually. So this is a way, what's at stake, for example, is the adoption of AI in a way that's accessible to us, that's focused on development. Now, these are values, right? If you will, these are deep values that unite us. We want the betterment of our people. We want open source AI, for example. We want accessibility. And that kind of development is all right there. So, this is just one of the many partnerships created. And I think it's absolutely strategic and very, very interesting. So as someone who lives in Hangzhou, I welcome this and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, very close to your heart there. Bochum, if you look at beyond the economy, tech, cooperation, of course, ultimately it's people to people. And there's a opinion poll conducted by CGTN. It found out like more than 83% of Malaysian respondents expressed positive sentiments about China. And it also showed nearly 84% of respondents expressing interest in visiting or studying in China. We know 2024 witnessed almost 6 million visits between the two nations. So already there's, the number has passed the peaking period before the pandemic. So it's a new high, and now the potential seems still massive.
Yes, and if you want to really attract birds, you got to build the right tree and also the right forest and bring the water, what they really needed. So that's the most ancient Chinese metaphor. And now for China, the attractiveness is there. For example, there is an increasing number of the ASEAN students who study in my class in my school, and they know that we are not only doing more of the Chinese homogeneous textbooks, we also borrow all the frontier technologies and the curriculum from the West. So by the degrees they earn, they can really get accredited through the ASB system in the United States, through the EQUIS system in the entire Europe, etc. So China is now garnering more of the global recognition, and hence by working with China, by studying with China, and they also gets the global recognition. And the other is that many of the young people and also the business leaders, they look at China as the place to start their business. And as a matter of fact, if you see the most authoritative global branding ranking, without actually a foothold, even for global companies, without a foothold in the thriving market, like ASEAN and China, you do not even qualify to be ranked in the global brands. So, and now, by engaging with China, they are also able to learn also on a macro level as how China builds the special economic zones, how China builds high-tech parks, etc. And the fact that the twin industrial parks, we operate 5 or 6 between China and Malaysia, is really a great example for them to not only to share the Chinese experience, but to leverage on a synchronized basis of what is going on in terms of innovation, in terms of the business transactions. So this is why China is getting more and more popular, and more of the macro policies to boost tourism can also bring people into familiarity, affinity with each other.
Long-term engagement over there. I mean, similarly, we find the numbers in terms of the impression of China veterans in Cambodia, and local people also very positive, around 95 or 94% of the respondents believe China has made positive contribution to global economic development, of course. So how do you describe, the public, their perception about the relationship with China, about their understanding of China?
Since COVID time, I think the Cambodian perception toward China getting more positive. As you mentioned earlier, the survey by CGTN, more than 90% of Cambodia are very positive toward China, and they see China as a very important development partner, contributor to Cambodia's socio-economic development, also to the regional and global economy. So I think this is not a perception alone, but perception is based on concrete actions by China in Cambodia, the region, and the world. So they see China as a beacon of hope when it comes to global trade regime now. They see China as a new source of technology transfer and know-how to Cambodia, because we are really interested to see more technology transfer and know-how transfer from China to Cambodia and also Southeast Asian region. Because you look at the artificial intelligence, you look at green technology like electric vehicle and so on, China are very advanced now. And we to see more this kind of technology transfer. Another layer that the Cambodian people are very positive to China is human resource development, human capital development, skills, development and upgrading. So we would like to see more Chinese investment projects in Cambodia to provide more training opportunities for the Cambodian workforce, especially in high-tech industry. So this is, I think, the perception will remain very high toward China because of the benefits and the concrete actions they see what China is doing in Cambodia.
So the potential there. And then for these bilateral ties, Vanderis, in a signed article, President Xi calls on China and Cambodia to act as pioneers and pace setters in translating the 3 initiatives: Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative, from a vision into reality. How are these initiatives, seen in Cambodia, and what's the signal from this article here?
Yeah, obviously Cambodia is the first Southeast Asian country that endorse and fully support and embrace all these global initiatives by President Xi. So that because we believe in Chinese leadership and responsibility in shaping a new world order, and this based on, I think, mutual trust, very deep mutual trust and understanding between the two countries. So moving forward, even though Cambodia is a small country in Southeast Asia, but our experience in peace building, peacekeeping, especially in demining anti-personnel landmine, Cambodia is leading in the global stage now when it comes to this peacekeeping operation. And our women peacekeepers now is one of the highest in the world. We contributed a lot of women peacekeepers to different parts of the world. And working together with China on this peace agenda and also on the civilizational kind of initiative, because Cambodia is a very old Asian civilization. If you visit Angkor Wat temple, for instance, it's a 10th century, 9th century civilization, and our relationship with China lasted for more than 2,000 years. So this is a kind of two old Asian civilization and wisdom that we can work together, not to create exclusive but inclusive kind of a platform for cultural dialogue and civilizational exchanges.
Veneris, let's say, what to expect out of President Xi's trip to Cambodia?
I think tomorrow we will see a list of agreements to be signed. Today, President Xi met with His Majesty the King and also the President of the Senate. The special welcome to President Xi, this is very, very special. The highest form of state visit ever to Cambodia, with His Majesty the King welcoming at the airport together with the President of the Senate, Hun Sen, Hun Sen. So this has never happened in the Cambodian history when it comes to the welcoming of the state leader from China and other countries. So we expect to see more concrete outcomes tomorrow. But I think by having this kind of welcoming, very warmest welcome, a lot of Cambodians very happy to see, very excited to see President Xi. I think a very positive step forward, and more concrete action will be known tomorrow.
Well, John, lastly, like 1 minute, how do you look at President Xi's trip to the three ASEAN countries, Southeast Asian countries here?
I think it's extraordinary the extent to which there is a similar response, a hearty welcome and an upgrade, seemingly an upgrade in relationship across the region. And I agree. I think Cambodia's welcome is impossible to top. I thought Malaysia's was great. But I think this is this is a reflection of the time we're in. The aggressive trade actions that we're seeing from the other side of the world have been a tremendous accelerant for cohesion within ASEAN and between ASEAN and China. I mean, it's insane to ask ASEAN to sort of take a side in this. The very DNA of the region, if you know anything about it at all, is to remain open. So while it is not sort of becoming a kind of a closed ally of any particular country, it is open to all and very deeply aligned.
Right. On that note, we come to the end of today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also watch us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
Welcome to The World Today here on CGTN. I'm Li Qiuyuan coming to you live in Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodia's King Norodom Sihamoni and Senate President Hun Sen. President Xi began his Cambodia state visit today and was greeted at the airport by the nation's senior leaders. In a written statement released upon his arrival to Phnom Penh, President Xi said ties were forged and nurtured by the older generation of leaders of the two countries. He said China and Cambodia support each other in maintaining national stability and promoting development and prosperity. President Xi said both countries unite and collaborate to defend international fairness and justice. He also said China and Cambodia have made contributions in promoting the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. More than 20,000 people, including representatives of overseas Chinese, gathered to warmly welcome President Xi. President Xi Jinping has met with Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni at the Royal Palace in Phnom Penh, where he emphasized the strong historical ties between China and Cambodia. President Xi expressed his pleasure at visiting Cambodia on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of King Sihamoni's reign. He said the two countries have set an example of equality and mutual benefit in international relations, highlighting the long-standing cooperation and mutual support between China and Cambodia. President Xi praised the two sides' enduring friendship and stressed the importance of strengthening ties to bring about shared prosperity. King Sihamoni reaffirmed Cambodia's commitment to the One China principle and praised President Xi's global initiatives, expressing his gratitude for the Belt and Road Initiative's contributions to Cambodia's development. The king also awarded President Xi Cambodia's Grand Medal of Independence. And following the meeting, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Cambodian People's Party President and Senate President Hun Sen. President Xi has also talked with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. And before Xi's arrival in Phnom Penh, Cambodian media outlets published his signed article. Our Chen Yuan has more.
Just ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's arrival for a two-day state visit to Cambodia, locals will find his signed article featured on the front pages of Cambodian media outlets, including the Khmer Times, Jinhua Daily, and Fresh News. In the article titled "Together We Strive, Together We Thrive Toward a Stable and Sustainable China-Cambodia Community with a Shared Future in the New Era," Xi says China has been Cambodia's largest trading partner and largest source of investment, with China-supported infrastructure projects bolstering the long-term development of the country.
China has helped Cambodia build roads, facilitating people's travel. That's friendship.
She said that China and Cambodia should bring their mutual political trust to a higher level and expand their mutually beneficial cooperation of higher quality.
When I hear the president is paying a visit, I am happy. As a Khmer, I offer my support.
President Xi describes China's friendship with Cambodia as ironclad, and his article reflects this friendship, reaffirming China's steadfast commitment to further enhancing bilateral ties. Chen Yuan, CGTN, Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
People in Cambodia have warmly welcomed the Chinese president's arrival. They have expressed their support for the growing ties between the two countries. Take a listen.
We are excited to welcome the president Chinese come to Cambodia. I'm also studying Chinese too.
Why do you want to learn Chinese?
Because I want to Chinese country.
From whom they learned the line down?
Before I learned this from the trainer is a Malaysian national, but however he already stopped working, but we still continue his skill.
We hear a lot about China. I come from Europe, from France, and China invests everywhere in a lot of countries, especially here in Cambodia. That's great, and it's a win-win situation.
As president of the Cambodia-China Digital Youth Association, I see President Xi Jinping's visit as a powerful symbol of trust and long-term friendship between our two nations. His presence here reflects the importance China places on Cambodia, not only at the leadership level, but also in the hearts of our people. For us, the younger generation, this visit is incredibly inspiring. It shows that Cambodia is part of a much bigger vision for shared growth, innovation, and cultural exchange. It motivates us to take an active role in deepening people-to-people ties, especially through digital collaboration, education, and youth empowerment. This visit isn't just about its presence, it's about building a brighter future together.
China's consumer market has shown strong signs of recovery in its first quarter, with retail sales jumping 4.6% year-on-year to 12.5 trillion yuan. China's Ministry of Commerce reports that the growth rate outpaced last year's full-year figure by 1.1 percentage points, signaling renewed confidence in domestic demand. March saw retail sales accelerate further, up 1.9 percentage points from the January to February period. Chinese authorities credit surging service consumption and rapid growth in digital spending for this growth and have pledged more policy to sustain momentum, including improvement policies like tax refunds for international shoppers. Amid fresh U.S. tariff threats, Ministry of Commerce spokesperson He Yongjian confirmed ongoing technical talks with their American counterparts while doubling down on aligning with the EU to safeguard multilateral trade under WTO principles and keep supply chains stable.
China's position has been consistent and clear. We remain open to economic and trade consultations with the United States. However, the unilateral imposition of tariffs was entirely initiated by the U.S. side. As the saying goes, he who tied the belt to the tiger must take it off. We urge the U.S. to immediately cease its maximum pressure tactics, hot coercion and blackmail, and work with China to resolve differences through equal dialogue grounded in mutual respect.
谢谢。